I'm going to hope those all happened. I only heard one, but that may be Skype. No, Audacity. Yes. No, fuck it.
Discord.
I clapped and I heard one. I clapped and I heard one other clap. So at least
okay, that might just be Discord doing noise canceling.
Yeah, or not getting over the threshold for the individual things.
Yeah. I'm going to assume we're fine. Oh, and welcome to Radio for Nintendo. It is June 6th, 2024, and I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
We are not joined today by John Lindemann, who will be allegedly back next week for the Iron Man streak to continue, I'm going to say, for 2 weeks. And this is the start of Guillaume's vacation. He will be gone next week as well. And then we'll maybe all be back in 2 weeks. But for right now, we're going to do something a little bit special this week. I have two guests who I will say we continue to afflict my artistic genius upon. Starting first with... I'm going to say the owner of Nintendo World Report, although I know you have held many other titles over your time here. Mr. Neil Ronahan.
Hi. It's been a long time. I tried to look to see the last time I was on RFN, and I think it was 2016. So
it's been a long time coming. Besides E3 episodes, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And we're also joined today by the current director of Nintendo World Report, Mr. John Raridan.
Howdy, everybody. This is an intervention, James. That's why we've called it
to be fair, look, at least somebody's making fucking TSIs for your site. Like
this is true. This is true.
Fair.
Like as long as I keep doing it, I feel like I have infinite power to do. There haven't been any genitals up yet, although there was a very close call once when I realized the background had one in it. You would think using WikiHow as your sources would make that impossible, but no. There was like a Renaissance painting badly just dropped in the background of this art gallery picture. I was like, I
mean, as long as it's artistic.
Almost got me. I mean, I don't know that it was artistic.
The Titanic historical boobs. Like, so it was PG-13.
Yeah.
This is the one that John had a cult following as an artist, and everyone in front of him was wearing a jacket with his face on it. This was a particularly demented piece of art from late in 2023. This is episode 878. 888. Yes, 8. Palindrome episode. I always call that out. And we're not going to do our normal format this week. I brought these two gentlemen here because they're particularly well positioned to talk a little bit about the interesting challenge that we have as an industry right now. So a lot of consolidation amongst the larger players in the website, online media space, the shift towards creator-driven content where it's not necessarily tied to a larger outlet. That's been going on for a decade plus. The end of E3 as a functional rally point for the media space to sort of consolidate around for at least a week. And the larger challenges that are presented by the consolidation of internet influence in the hands of Google, the move towards devaluing the actual origin point of content through aggregation, and just all the other fun challenges that come with trying to be a functional business, such that we are a business, which I guess legally speaking we are.
Indeed.
On the internet in the year of our Lord 2024. And I guess let's kick it off to start with. All of us at this point have been in this game in some form or another for at least a decade, right?
Yeah.
Which is
I think,
terrifying.
John, you're the freshest face here, and you've been at Nintendo World Report for a decade.
This
maybe a little
October,
less.
So
yeah.
I've been doing games journalism longer than that, but Nintendo World Report specifically October 2014 was when I joined the site.
And I was speaking in the more broad sense. So this is a comedic assembly of people who have, I think, with very few exceptions, basically never been paid for the thing they're doing for like 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
I wrote a piece for Game Book Color, which recently came out, and I got paid like $100. So
nice.
I'm a professional, y'all.
I had
get on my level.
I had my like 2 or 3 years of freelancing across your IGNs and your 1UPs and your Game Pros. 2 of those 3 are dead.
And the rest are all owned by one company.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much everything is owned by one company at this point. But even, I mean, that was almost, the freelancing was a side hustle to what I was trying to do at Nintendo Report back then.
I have been paid a few times for some editing work, not necessarily for video game content. And it basically, learning to write on this site basically made me a better opinion writer, which is always interesting in my job. I do have to take the venom down slightly, just a little bit, and dramatically decrease the irony, because there is a long running, at least in the last 10 years, of me just filling page with irony. But yeah, so this website's been around for 25 years in some form or another.
25 years this past March, which, John, I don't even know if you remembered it. I was like, the day after, I was like, crap, we forgot the 25th anniversary.
I think I got on the NWR Twitter, the NWR X account, and
Don't do that.
I shared the 20th anniversary video and just pretended like it was new.
We knocked it out of the park for 20. Like that's we could live on that for another 5 years. I'm not going to put that much
effort into every anniversary.
There's a organizing factor that was involved that I won't name that made 20 work and made 25 not work as well.
Yeah.
Certain people have strong organizational skills.
Yes.
I will say. 20 was the one where we basically went and tried to find the number 20 in some context and presented ourselves accordingly. But I'm trying to think how old I was when the site started then. I was definitely not old enough to be on the site. So that's frightening because I'm old now. So
it's 1999.
Yeah.
99.
I would have been 11. I know when I first was aware of Planet GameCube as an entity would have been when I was about 13 years old.
Yes, I would have been in middle school. Because, I think for me it was right around the time that GameCube came around, and I was actually on a different website before that. Because I think Nintendo World Report was one of the first sites that put up images from the Melee trailers.
Yeah, I think it was the Space World stuff in like fall 2021. I think that was around that. I think that's when I first was aware of this site.
And it only took about 9 minutes for the pictures to load, so that was cool.
Blazing fast speeds.
Oh yeah, on both sides.
Yeah.
Also highly compressed, because I've heard this story. Storage is really expensive for these GameCube screenshots. We got to cut these down.
Yeah,
I remember finding a story. I found a story years ago about, I think it was the Twilight Princess trailer, and the story was talking about like you'll have to melt your modem downloading this, and I don't remember what size it was, but it was tiny.
It was Real Player?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was like
I remember
like a couple megabytes. It was
downloading that
on
like
240p.
Library broadband or whatever.
Nice.
Set a watch.
We are obviously not in that place anymore. I think it kind of hints at the biggest change, which is the lack of, I don't want to use the word gatekeeping because that's not the right role here. The
authority?
Evolution. Yeah, like there are no source, like this is the authoritative source on where you want to get information from. Well, there is. It's the people who are generating the information themselves.
Yeah.
Like
it is kind of funny looking at it because, I mean, like, when it comes to Nintendo and any kind of leaker scene, it's the PRO Twitter account is like, that is what everybody's fixated on. When PRO talks, everybody's like, something's happening. And it used to be where it would be like, oh no, like, here's just a screenshot of the Melee character screen. Like, that's what it was 20 years ago. Now it's like, one. Some dude put out a tweet and is like, I wonder what's going to be announced next week.
Yeah, I mean, there is a, I don't want to use the word clout chasing, but like there is some of that. There is some of the like,
definitely.
People want to be teased, I mean, there's an entire industry around that, in case you're curious. Children, this is not for you.
No.
Also, children, this show's not for you. What are you doing?
How'd you get here?
But some of it's just the information is so readily available now that I almost wonder if video games being still relatively secretive is like scratching some part of brains of people who didn't grow up with the essentially limitless capacity to generate any piece of information they need from a device in their pocket. And I mean, that I kind of fall in that space. Like, as an adult, I've always had a phone that could theoretically browse the internet. Now, is it going to be an experience? No, because I remember what mobile pages used to look like. But in theory, I had access to information. I could look up stuff and know what they were pretty much from high school on. But video games don't make their information available. Like, they are secretive beyond what other media types do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not Disney going out there and announcing their 12-year Marvel plan. Which
it depends on if it's Nintendo in the Wii U era, in which case they absolutely announced a 12-year plan.
Or Microsoft now, where they're just like, Fable,
Gears of
War. Yeah, we swear, some year.
Yeah.
We are making games for this console you bought, I promise. Speaking of which, if we do new business this week, I'm talking about the Disneyland Connect game that they just put on Game Pass without Connect, which there's so much fun.
Is it functional?
Sort of.
I hate that I know this, but that's been on Connect either for a while or before, that's been on Game Pass for a while.
Well, they might have just decided today was the day to surface it. I don't know, but it was right at the top of,
because I've played it.
Oh, I met
everybody's talking about Disney World after the Jenny Nicholson Star Wars Hotel video. Gotta bring the Disney stuff up.
I'm at 40% completion on it.
Oh, I booted it up for an evening and went, what is this? And looked around for a second and went, oh, I hate it.
Yeah,
and then stopped playing. I didn't keep going.
Oh no, I kept going because I needed to know more. I needed to know more. This is the self-destructive monster in me. So if we get to new business, I'll talk about that. But it is kind of an interesting statement on where we're at right now, because like right now, and I say this, I mean I'm on the site right now. I'm on our website, NintendoWorldReport.com, and we've had some reviews, we've had a couple podcasts posted, but I mean, yeah, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now because so is Nintendo.
Yeah.
But I think more broadly, it does feel like written form media is kind of in a holding pattern, because like, what's the action? And you guys actually see the numbers. Like, what's the value of news coverage in this space? Like, in terms of like,
if you're covering something that people aren't covering, which is very difficult to do. Like, I mean, I'll pat myself on the back for asking a question in front of a room of reporters and being the only person to report on it with the whole Mario Maker 2 not having friends online multiplayer, which like literally was at a press event for Mario Maker 2, asked it in front of a room of reporters, and I was the only person that remembered it and wrote it down. And
because you have to be a certain kind of broken to even think that was a possible outcome.
Right. Yeah, you have to know Nintendo real well to know that that's a question that needs to be asked.
But then to hear the answer and think it wasn't you didn't hear it wrong. Like, oh no, I heard that answer correctly.
Yeah, like that's when like when I was putting that news up and I went up and I'm like, wait, no one else is covering this. Like I was like, did I have it wrong? And I did not. I might have single-handedly ruined Mario Maker 2. But like when we have original reporting like that, or even covering something that like people might be interested in, I'm trying to think of a recent example because I actually did. With all the hoopla around the Google algorithm over the past like 6 to 9 months, like I think September 2023 was when the first of the like seismic changes in the algorithm happened.
Well, let's explain that to people who don't follow this. Like the algorithm here is how Google ranks pages on their result set.
Yes,
based on your query.
Yeah.
And they constantly tweak it. Like one of the things that they want to be able to say is that you don't know how their algorithm works. Because obviously if you know how their algorithm works, you can game it. And it used to be very easy to game. In high school, I had a part-time working for myself job gaming it for local what's the term they use for them? Life coaches. I was literally being paid in high school by life coaches to get their page above the page of a person whom I had bumped up the Google results last month. Was that super unethical?
Black hat tactics, baby.
Moderately. I never adjusted someone else to get a new client above them. I did use what I learned, though, and did not go back and fix the other one because they weren't paying me anymore. I work by the hour. So but it is difficult now. And as you alluded to, about, I would say around the start of the year, maybe a little bit before that, Google started rolling out a new version of their algorithm, which really fucked with what the previous algorithm was. So assumptions on what was good are no longer good.
It's been a little bit of a gradual process, and I can speak. I mean, like, I'm not going to talk about the old day job. If you're really curious, like, it's not hard to figure out. But my day job is working in SEO, so I deal with this crap way too often. It's been a gradual process with it, but really it was like a couple of updates in 2023 for like kind of laying the groundwork for, I think the one that really impacted game sites in particular. There was actually, I think it was like a month or two ago, it was like these sites have had their traffic impacted, and a good number of them were like places like Kotaku, and a lot of other prominent game sites had their traffic and their Google rankings significantly altered by, I think, a 1-2 punch of the September 2023 update and then the March 2024 update. And now we're dealing with Google rolling out this asinine AI overviews, which is their, Gen AI search that has led to such wonderful results, AI generated results that recommend you run with scissors. It's a good health benefit. Eat rocks, or to get cheese to stick to pizza, use glue.
Eat a rock. Just one.
Yeah. Eat a rock every day. Keeps the doctor
don't go
away.
crazy.
Yeah. So there's definitely, I mean, it's a lot of, it comes down to Google's just scared. Because Microsoft talked a big game about partnering with ChatGPT, even though I believe the Microsoft CEO said in a courtroom that was like, yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. We just started doing it and throw money at it because we figured we'd piss off Google and scare them. And they did. Bravo.
Mission accomplished.
I mean, so the thing about Gen AI, and this actually gets, I am a computer scientist, which is shocking to myself, is that we don't really know what we're doing either.
No.
I say this as a computer scientist who's in Gen AI. Like, I've done Gen AI stuff. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's legitimately, like, I put things in, it shoots out a response, and I go, how the fuck did it do that?
Yeah.
And there is, like, we're starting to understand how, like, we made something and don't understand how it works.
This is how Terminator starts. Like,
I want to make that clear.
We're on our
path. That's how a lot of movies start.
Humanity could God make a rock so heavy he can't lift it? Well, humanity made a computation device so complicated they can't understand it. So yeah, probably. Now we're starting to get into it, but part of that was because there was this arms race to just get stuff out, and OpenAI just fucking blew the doors off one day. Like, they just showed up at a party and they're like, look at this shit we've got. And Microsoft threw money at them, and they backed the right horse. I don't know if they backed the right horse deliberately or if they just got lucky. But yeah, Google was worried because this is a space that normally they would have been leading in. Meta was worried too, because again, this is normally a space they'd be like. Microsoft isn't known for being the one to kick the door in. They're known for being the ones to put out the product that's actually usable. Right. This is the difference between being an AWS outlet and being an Azure outlet. You got AWS way earlier, but like Azure actually makes some fucking sense sometimes because Microsoft's like, we're going to be very careful and make sure our corporate partners aren't upset. And Amazon's like, fuck it, let's ride. But yeah, so they've put the overviews in there, which summarizes your content but doesn't cite you.
Yeah.
In some cases it does, but
in some cases, it doesn't. Like, The Onion ended up getting not non-cited, which is a problem if you're going to cite the
problematic on multiple.
Well, that's also. I mean, the added thing to this is that because the current thing with AI is a lot of, like, there was the deal with Vox Media like a week or two ago, where OpenAI made a deal with Vox Media in which they are going to use, places like Polygon and The Verge, use all of their old articles to help train their AI models, and also it'll be a way to have any new pieces of content that Polygon and The Verge and SB Nation, any stuff that they write will immediately get fed into OpenAI's, the large language model. And that's even Google paid a buttload of money to Reddit to use all of the Reddit posts and comments to help train their AI model. And turns out that there's a lot of Reddit comments that aren't really serious and are sarcastic.
No.
And the robots do not know how to detect sarcasm, but just stuff like how the running with scissors, eating a rock, et cetera, all came about as being actual results.
In the NHL? Yes, the dog has played in the NHL. In 2018, Papasil, a fourth-round pick, played 63 games for the Calgary Flames and scored 8 goals and 24 points. Again, that's probably from like Reddit or something stupid. But the net outcome is if the AI doesn't know it's looking at... AI doesn't understand sarcasm is the problem.
Yeah.
Right. So we were joking about the Show Pony article that I wrote last year. And like Google's overview might think that's legitimate, whereas the whole thing is actually like, it's a farce. I'm making fun of the strategy behind the entirety of the Warriors franchise.
Oh God.
That's why there's yeah.
I hope Horror Show Pony generates an AI overview. Yeah. I gotta check. Nope, not yet.
No, he doesn't. But like, it's it's this weird push-pull of like Google trying to remain what they effectively have been since they effectively took this from AOL, being the front page of the internet.
Yep.
And like they know what happened to AOL as a functional entity once they lost that command position. Like Google monetizes their command position as being the front of the internet, and all of the other enterprises that come out from that are largely a function of being in the command position that they are in, because I mean, Google ad revenue is basically how they make their money.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing is that they're doing all the AI responses, and they have to figure out the right way to work in all the ads, because paid search is a hell of a thing, very profitable. And then even all the e-commerce stuff on top of that, that's where a lot of what Google's doing with the AI overviews is factoring into a lot of e-commerce stuff and generating stuff in that way. And the goal there is to have it so you can buy things on Google without going anywhere else. It's the zero-click, like the Google zero-click goal. Like they don't want you to actually leave the search window.
It's very, and you might also notice that Amazon doesn't seem to get recommended in the Google Shopping so much.
Nope.
Because if you leave for Amazon, you're probably going to stay there.
Yeah, because you'll just search there to find anything else you want to buy.
And there is a weird, like, that's the player that hasn't made the move to stepping out of their retail space. Like, fuck it, why not be a website aggregator? Why not have an Amazon search engine? Fuck it, let's get nuts. And Google's large market position largely comes from the fact that everybody is ceded to them. Like they basically all stepped away.
I mean, that's even part of the reason why Google is like shaking their boots a little bit, is that like Bing started to eke into Google's market dominance, but it's like Bing went from like 4% to 6%.
That's just Guillaume searching more to get points.
And and as someone who switched to using Microsoft Edge for their default browser and occasionally accidentally searches something on Bing, Bing is just a thing where you search something, go, those aren't the right results, and then go over to Google and use that instead. It never gets what you're looking for, ever.
It's even, I know like a lot of people do use DuckDuckGo, because that's the one that like, doesn't leverage your personal information and data and everything. And I know my experiences with that is sometimes I'll search for something and be like, it actually didn't know what I meant. Sometimes the moments when Google knows too much about me helps me out when I'm searching for things.
Right.
Google's data set that they use to figure out what to search with is immense, and DuckDuckGo's is not.
Yeah.
But all of this comes back to us because that's how discovery happens. Like that's how you get people on your website who just don't go to your website.
I probably did not use Google, but that would have been how I found Planet GameCube in like 2001. Dogpile? Would I have used Dogpile? I don't know. Maybe.
Oh my God.
Ask Jeeves? Did I ask Jeeves? Where are the Nintendo
Where
websites?
can I find pictures of Smash Brothers game disc? Because my brain rot would have wanted. Need pictures, Luigi Mansion. Help, please. Jeeves. Thank you. There is this weird period where before Google had achieved market dominance, where it's like you're gonna have to search 4 different search engines and hope one of them has it.
Yep.
And it's like I can go to Yahoo and get bombarded with the Yahoo front page, which basically still looks like the Yahoo front page. Well, the Japanese Yahoo front page looks like. If you want to know what the internet looked like in 2000, go to any Japanese version of a major company's website. Congratulations, you've seen it. Yahoo Japan looks like Yahoo did in 2000. It's fucking wild. But that was it. I probably found it on Google because I was on Google pretty early, but it might have been, whatever. But that was it. That's how I found this website. Previously I was on, I don't know, I was Nintendo Fire or something. I don't know.
I mean, Nintendo Joe would have been around back then.
Yeah.
I mean, IGN 64 would have been a thing. I know. I think there are stories. I don't know if I'm talking out of school or not because IGN had all the Planet sites, and I think they were pretty pissed that Planet GameCube was taken.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of other players in the Nintendo space back then. I mean, there definitely weren't as many as there are today. Although now, I mean, it's always wild to me, and it's been this way for a long time. Because we've always had the website, and the website, right. We still have that. But how many you do have, your Nintendo Life, your My Nintendo News, a handful of sites that have a relatively normal website experience, but there's so many YouTube only channels that do not
right.
have a .com experience. It is just go to my channel, I put out videos a couple times a day or whatever, or a couple times a week, and that is everything. And that is happening way more often where the website is the afterthought, which, I mean, honestly, at this point, to a degree, that's kind of true with us too. But we're still a little bit more balanced than a lot of places.
And I think that is not a recent,
no
algorithm shift. That's
no.
for the past, I don't know, 15 years. Websites as an individual thing that you go to don't really exist anymore. The internet is a series of hubs and social media platforms.
Pretty much.
So you don't go to a website looking for Nintendo news. You go to YouTube. Maybe YouTube will link you to a website, but you're not going to follow that link.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have a website is, I think, indicative of how old we are.
Yeah.
I just went to GameExplain.com, which I wasn't confident wouldn't just take me to their YouTube channel. And it's just a feed of their YouTube videos. Yeah. It's just their YouTube channel, but on a website.
Yeah.
And considering the content they produce, and if you search for them, the YouTube page is the first result. Their Twitter one is the second. The third one is
they have this website so that nobody else will take it. I'm honestly surprised that I get to a website and am not redirected to their YouTube channel.
It's such an ugly website. Oh my god.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
I'll say it. No,
it's definitely a
It is a website on the internet.
It is a template.
I'm going to have to look at it.
Well, it's the use of a low resolution image blown up as the background.
How dare you besmirch what I believe is Majora's Mask 3D?
Yeah, exactly.
Blown
up to be whatever the resolution of your screen is, which mine is 4K. Have fun with that. It looks like a nightmare.
If there's one resolution that I know looks good at any size, it's 240p.
So
I mean,
bad.
honestly, I think this website exists to have the business inquiries page.
Yeah, in the content.
Yeah.
That's
also, apparently they sell T-shirts.
I think I knew that. That's not even a dig there. That's just you have that so that way. T-shirt. Yeah, when companies, you want to have sponsorships on your YouTube channel, maybe John, we need to get a business inquiries page up.
There you go.
Sure.
Report.
Well, I can make one while we're doing this. If you want.
There you go. Oh, well, that's the other part though, is that the ad revenue on video has always been higher, and some of that is pushed by Google because they run the largest online ad service. This is a monopoly. Who can say? They run the largest video platform. Okay, now we're starting to smell. And were they the ones that published the phony ads for the drove the shift to video, where it's like video content drives more engagement?
Well, that was Facebook. Facebook, I think, was
the and it turns out
the
like
pivot to video that just killed.
It was a lie.
Yeah.
He killed written content. So big outlets, the outlets that we're going to talk about in a minute, pivoted to video. So like they killed they laid off writer content, people who wrote as their primary mechanism of making content, and replaced them with video creators. And what they found is that, one, creating video is a lot more expensive, which shouldn't have surprised.
Takes a lot more time.
Oh yeah.
I feel like you can say that to our very own website, and that as we've kind of pivoted to video ourselves slightly, we don't have as many people that are good at cranking out video. I mean, John's like a pro.
Right.
I'm
that's
an
only
old
because
dad
I was
who's
literally
tired, so I can't do it that much.
No.
Well, and I was hired on this site literally just to make video.
Yes, that was
that's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah.
So like that's
Jared, wherever you are, come back. Yeah. I know you're out making cartoon kids movies. Come back.
Is that what he's up to? Good for him.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on which movies he's making. I don't know. It might be bad for him.
We could talk about that.
Whatever they are, he's getting paid for them.
I could tell.
You know what? You're right. Good for him.
Jared's doing well. That's
okay. Okay. Since there's some of them, we might have to have words. But it is interesting that like the pivot to video essentially was self-fulfilling.
Yeah,
because it essentially killed like a lot of websites I used to go to every day. I didn't go to anymore because it didn't produce as much written content, and that's
even Google Reader going away killed it for me. Like,
oh, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, now there's like Feedly, but because all the written sites have been killed, like even
your RSS feed's just video links.
Yeah. Like that's what I've tried to go back to RSS feed. It kind of works for sports still, because sports is a little bit. I feel like it's just sports has just a wider reach, and I mean, especially if you're doing anything with the NFL, there's basically like 2 weeks out of the year, like in between the draft and the schedule release, that it's quiet. And then it just
it's your vacation window.
Yeah, right now, I mean, you're seeing breakdowns of Michael Penix v. Kirk Cousins out on Lindemann's not here, so I could say it, right?
Why? Like, I can't think of a breakdown is the right word. Yes, that's entirely possible. Oh my God. I was contemplating, like, how did I use the internet as recently as, let's say, 2008, 2010. And it was a lot more, not just written content that I was consuming, but also it was user-generated written content. It'd be like message boards,
forums,
and stuff.
yeah.
And those all died too.
I mean, Reddit kind of operates that space a little bit more, and social media. I mean, that's what like it was the 1-2 punch of the depression and doom scrolling that was 2020, and then Elon Musk buying Twitter and changing it to X. Twitter was my RSS feed. It still is in some respects, but not as much, because I mean so many people left it, and it has become a porno hellfire at this point. But I did like I mean it has gotten me like I read The Athletic a lot more. I wish there was the video game equivalent of The Athletic sometimes, even if I don't think the money makes sense for The Athletic, but they got a lot of really good reporters.
Well, that's the thing though. Like I had an Athletic membership because they covered my college football team. And they covered top 10 basketball at the college level.
Yeah.
And then after they got all those subscriptions, they laid those writers off.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
I think it's even for football, like they don't have, maybe football still has a beat writer for every team, but I think some of it's where it's like, oh, like nobody gives a shit about the AFC South. We just have like 2 guys that cover all 4 teams. Yeah. Or something like that. And like,
the net outcome of that, like, well, they used to have a beat writer for pretty much every major college football program.
Yeah.
And they built that by hiring those people away from the newspapers that already had them. And the newspapers didn't replace them because they also are shrinking their newsrooms.
Yep.
So, like, it's this weird death spiral of written content where I actually worry that we're going to get to a place where people just don't know how to write content anymore. And we'll never be able to come back because people just don't know how to do it.
I mean, you do have to... I guess you could use an AI. I was going to say, you do have to write the videos.
You do, but it's different. The writing is different.
Yeah, it's a different style.
Yeah. And writing engagingly is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's, I mean, like, John, not to pick on you. I mean, we just talked about
do it.
You being the video guy. Like, no, you write videos. When you're writing something that's just going to be posted written, we got to do some editing, brother.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that's your style. And I'll admit that my writing a decade ago versus now, I'm way more conversational in tone because I know that when I'm writing something long form, I'm writing it because it's probably going to get turned into a video. Like it has changed my style.
You need a really strong voice in your writing if you're going to do video.
Yeah.
Or at least a different flavor of voice.
Right.
Yeah.
And like that's when I write now, I've effectively created a persona that I write through. That's not me. Because that's what I had to do to make it interesting for myself.
Right.
Like I
play a character on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yes.
I used to say I play a character on this podcast, but I've increasingly become aware of the fact that no. No, reality.
You play a character in real life, and this is just you.
Reality arced towards the character I was playing on the show. It's a very unfortunate situation in general.
Like it's a combination of you having to go into the host chair too, like just bent
there was
those
a bigger
things
gulf.
Together.
Yeah, I was Statler and Waldorf at one point, and now I'm Kermit, and that's a different problem to solve because at its heart, I'm still Statler and Waldorf. So I'm like, okay, I have to actually host this fucking thing, and Waldorf is still there in the form. Well, he's there. He's here about 1/3 of the episodes, so I have to deal with that. But yeah, like there is I actually really enjoy writing, and to me, that's part of and reading, and to me, that's part of like what has me worried about like. Even on our site, where like, what are we going to write about in June? June used to be like our biggest traffic month because of
right.
I
don't know if my opinion on Jeff Keighley has made it into this podcast audience, but
he's not a fan.
He can suck a dick. So Summer Games Fest,
I just don't know that
he can, should,
okay,
and
I mean we don't need to shame him.
I will forcibly feed him a bag of dicks if I ever encounter him.
Some people might be.
But Summer Games Fest is a fucking joke.
It is Summer Game Fest. It is not Games Fest.
Is this like Gamescom again? Where it's like, no, it's Gamescom, not Gamecom. That's the Tiger Electronics thing. You stupid monkey.
Yeah,
I mean, it's something that I've noticed. Like, I mean, really, it kind of was born out of E3 dying, and then the pandemic. Is everybody doing all these streams and like. Clearly, there has to be something in it because, like, they've had 25 wholesome directs. Guerrilla Collective seems to do things 2 to 3 times a year, and like, there's fun games in these. I did not know that Guerrilla Collective was going on until like I was like, oh, they announced a ukulele remake. That came out 3 years ago. Like I did not know, and like John and I are heads of a website. That should be paying attention to this shit.
We follow this.
And it is, we're cynical and jaded and old. Like that's part of it.
Sure.
But it is also like, this stuff is loosely tied together, but it's not tied together like it was around E3. Like E3 was appointment viewing to an extent, and that's not waxing nostalgic about it. There was more importance to it. Now, it's basically a dude like, putting together a film festival because his dad's the president of IMAX or whatever, and then some other people being like, well, I guess we could show up, and then Ubisoft and Microsoft doing their things.
I mean, there was literally a traffic cop. Like, there was an organization that ran E3 whose job it was to make sure you didn't double book time. So, like, that you could publish a schedule and say, this is when everything is going on. This is when this group's going to stream. This is when this group's going to stream. And there's a double whammy here of we've lost that. So stuff just kind of seems to happen ephemerally. But there was also like the hard dates of like, all right, your shit's got to be announced before this date because that's when people are going to walk into a building and play it. Unless you were Konami, who ran their press conference on the second day of E3 like absolute psychopaths. And I want to be clear, I went to 2 Konami press conferences. That's enough psychological damage to like need a therapist for life. And I still missed the worst one, which was the one before my first one. And like nothing made sense in that world. Like in that room, reality ceased to be a logical conclusion. But broadly speaking, like there was a hard date where your stuff had to be out by, and then they basically just backfilled a schedule. All right, Devolver, guess what? You're not small potatoes. You're getting the earliest fucking date we got. But
I mean, Devolver just had the food trucks outside the convention center.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they weren't even allowed in the building. It was something else, and they just filled out a schedule. But the lack of written format coverage as well means that it's hard to just find out when stuff is, because you don't want to go watch a goddamn YouTube video to go see when something is. Because what up, YouTube? We're going to talk about the schedule for the upcoming Summer Game Fest. I am excited. Are you excited for these games? Let's talk about the games we're going to be seeing today. We might get to see the new, and then they just list a bunch of games that won't be there. Silksong, probably going to be there. I believe in it. It's like...
it's time.
Hearing rumors of an Xbox portable device, and it's just like, just show me the fucking schedule, you absolute...
Maybe there's value in us just posting a video that's just a still image. Like some Weather Channel ass music behind it.
Yeah,
we should do the schedule and have a forecast of likelihood of Nintendo games, Nintendo Switch games.
Like, what if we just had
like an 80% chance of Switch ports, coming in from the East?
What if we had I know there's like 4 Nintendo World Report YouTube channels at this point.
No, there's only one. We do have like old legacy ones that just exist because
we had to abandon them because they got infected.
Somebody personally offended somebody at Google, and then there's no customer service, and it's a whole thing.
It's like
we did.
You put a trailer on this one.
Find their customer service, so we could get in contact with them now.
Maybe I'll have to go look into that now.
It's like you put a trailer on this one, therefore you can no longer monetize any video on the account. It's like, what? That's very stupid.
Yeah, we had the two. We had the two like 10 plus years ago where there was NWR exclusive and then like Nintendo World Report, because one, we would post trailers and the like, because that was the thing that people did back then.
Yes.
And I guess people still do that now, but I feel like it's more the ubiquity of how many people do it makes it less worthwhile to do.
Well, and you can just go to the official Nintendo or Microsoft or whatever, and it's there.
Everybody has their own channel now, so it doesn't have much value. Yeah.
But also... but there's a stupid rule of like, well, too much of your content isn't monetizable, therefore none of your content is monetizable.
Yeah. So I mean, you even have that. We talk about the algorithm. I mean, I guess we do have more YouTube channels. Like we have for anything on Twitch, we have like the NWR Plays YouTube account, because that's like kind of YouTube algorithm 101 is that if you have long form content like streams mixed in with your, edited focused videos, like that stuff's gonna like work against each other. Because YouTube kind of pegs channels as like, oh, they have this type of content. And honestly, that screws us a little bit, because we do have, I think John and I are both kind of bullish on the fact that like, we like the fact that our reviews are like get in, get out, less than 10 minutes. Like, but then every now and then we
brought back the review mini format I'm like, I can get this under 3 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah. But I also feel like that to an extent, like, it's not going to play the best with the algorithm, but I feel like that serves the weird niche audience that we appeal to these days, which I feel like is other people that have like, I either carry the attitude of somebody who's been paying attention to this stuff for 15, 20 years, or actually has been paying attention to this stuff for 15, 20 years.
Now, we do wind up screwing ourselves over, because we do, even with, streams separated out, we still have, some idiot will make a Star Fox documentary on our YouTube channel.
I don't know who.
Which
90 minutes about Star Fox
does not feed the algorithm that thinks we're doing 5-minute long reviews.
Yeah.
Oh no, the algorithm looks at that and goes, "Oh,
like okay. What happened? Are they okay?
Who do I serve this to?"
Yeah.
I mean, John, 2 years until Star Fox Zero's 10 year. We got to start working on that documentary.
I thought about that the other day. Yeah. Problem is, that's all I need. I can only do documentaries if the developer speaks English.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Imamura's NDA is going to be up by then?
When did he leave?
Oh, we might have to do it.
I think I've been told that it's a 10-year.
Okay. We might have to wait. Maybe we'll do it for the 15th.
20th anniversary of Star Fox Zero, the only content produced for this date.
Yeah.
As we slowly die and no one can play this game.
I've got it on Steam Deck. Works great.
That's the worst phrase. I've got a Steam Deck so I can play Star Fox Zero.
Listen, I don't know why else you would get a Steam Deck. It's not very good at playing PC games.
Oh.
Can you get Nintendo Land working on that thing? Because then I'm in.
Yeah. 100%.
All right.
I can do that when we're done if you want.
Oh, man.
Gotta play some Mario
The hardest
Chase.
part is enabling the gyro, but I think they've got that patch now, so it's just a button. When I did it, I had to get root access to set it up, but now I'm pretty sure you just toggle it on.
The other part, though, is that, again, we're dealing with Google algorithms because there was a point, I don't know if it's still true, where Google owned the number 1 and number 2 search engines in the world. The number 2 one was YouTube's.
Yeah, I think
probably still true.
Probably TikTok overtook that. TikTok has been a much bigger player.
But I hear TikTok might be up for sale, so there's an opportunity, Google. You should slide on in
there. That would be bad.
But
that's what we asked for.
Yep.
Heaven forbid. I won't say that.
Yeah.
But the problem with writing a search algorithm for video is it's difficult for the bots they use to go through the video and try to catalog the content in it. It's difficult for them to understand what the content is. They have AI that can hear what you say and can even read text you put on screen, and they try to make sense of it. But it's different than written format content. It just functionally is. And so as a consequence, the search engine there is going to be less responsive. So if you want to see the schedule for all the things, I don't even want to use the word press conferences, all the video streams going on, one, I don't know that anybody's pulled that together. If they have, it's totally a passion project. There's no agency doing that. And two, how do you put that into a format that can be consumed if you're a video only outlet? And the answer is you probably post it to your social media accounts. But we've also seen the fragmentation of social media. Facebook essentially was largely abandoned by certain demographics, and we'll just say people who are my age and younger, essentially. And Twitter is largely hemorrhaged a significant portion of its user base. So Twitter was never was never huge.
Twitter also never really drove traffic.
No. Though I will say that Twitter hasn't hemorrhaged as much as I think people would like to believe it has.
When
Twitter's kind of the same.
There
was a big exodus at the beginning. Everybody went, "Oh, I don't really like any of these other apps as well." And everybody just came back.
Yeah, because there's not really another player. But I think people... I definitely see that it's not...
Threads is, comically bad.
Yeah.
I definitely see that it's not as active as it used to be.
No,
and
it's not.
I think it's just less fun. I think that's the other thing, is that, the fun got zapped out of it. And so people just don't want to be on it. And so if you're a video-focused outlet, how would you get the schedule out to your audience? You can't. So the loss of E3 is being compounded by the loss of essentially independent coverage of these sites. And we talked about the consolidation. So IGN, parent company, purchased
Ziff Davis, which if you pay attention to your video game media history, Ziff Davis has been around forever and has just destroyed games media left and right. I think they killed One Up back in the day. I think they killed. Did they kill GamePro? They might have killed GamePro too.
They might have killed GamePro.
And I think they've owned IGN for a decade now.
Yes, and it's. Did they own GameStop at one point?
I don't think so. I don't think they own GameStop.
I think they produced the GameSpot TV show.
Oh no, GameSpot. GameSpot. No, I think. Oh yeah, no, that might have been. Yeah, I think they did.
And then they sold that off, and they basically. So they're for reference, they're an old format paper publishing company that's been around forever, largely with technology focus. It's they used to produce magazines for people getting into hobby PCs back when that was a thing in 1988. And I bought an Amstrad. What can I do with it?
Yep.
And the answer is nothing, because you bought a European PC and live in America, you idiot. It runs on 50 hertz. You're fucked. But like stuff like that, stuff like here's the source code that you can now type into your computer to have this program, which is a real thing. I actually have magazines like that.
Here's a brief list of gaming outlets that Ziff Davis has sold or shuttered, according to Wikipedia. First, the sold. They owned EGM. They sold it back to Steve Harris, and then Billy Berghammer was editor-in-chief for like 3 issues. Fun.
God, that's right.
GameCube history fact. I believe Johnny has an article in like the first issue. I'd probably still have that somewhere.
He does.
GameTab.com, GameVideos.com, MyCheats.com. Those all got sold. Discontinued. 1UP, Computer Gaming World, Game Now, Games for Windows, the official magazine, GameSpy, Game Trailers, Geek.com, GMR, official US PlayStation magazine, PC Magazine, Yugo Networks, Xbox Nation. I think that's basically all of the game. And the ones that they own now, as of a few weeks ago, the gaming outlets that they have, I guess even expanding a little bit, Dicebreaker, Eurogamer, GamesIndustry.biz, Humble Bundle, IGN, PC Mag, Rock Paper Shotgun.
Yeah, it's like
VG 24/7, and then a bunch of other things. TechBargains.com.
It really is like almost your URL squatting. Like they basically buy the URL, and I don't know that they have any interest in the content on the page.
No, it killed competition. They probably got it for a very cheap deal because the parent company for Eurogamer and GI.biz and all those sites was looking to sell. If folks don't know,
nakedly.
Read Pop is the company that owned all of those sites that got sold to IGN recently, or Ziff Davis rather. Read Pop puts on events like PAX East, PAX West, I think some Comic-Cons. I think they do New York Comic-Con. I don't think they do the San Diego one. I think that's its own entity. But Read Pop puts on a lot of events. COVID hit them real bad. And I think they were like, oh, the game... Like, part of it was that the game sites would kind of prop up what they were doing at these events, but that didn't really pan out the way I think they wanted it to, which is evidenced by the fact that they sold everything. But I think some of that goes into what we've been talking about for the past 50 minutes now, as far as the game changed from when they bought a lot of those companies.
Like, what would you do with all those different outlets? Like, what are you going to staff? Yeah, are you going to staff all of them? Hell no. Like, and a lot of when websites weren't writing news anymore, at least not with the same kind of like, I'm going to cover all the news that happens.
Yeah.
One, because it's really hard now. Like I make jokes about it on this show all the time. Like all the time. It is one of my most constant refrain of jokes of just like the eShop is an impossible mission. And every day I go in there, I encounter something new and I think to myself, well, that can't be real. That's not a real thing that exists. And then I am confronted with the reality of, no, actually, 19 other games came out, and you think none of them are real either, but they're all real. They all live. They all exist. And, like, there was a time, and I remember this, there was a time where basically every game that got announced for GameCube, Nintendo World Report had an article for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, like, that's impossible.
It's funny because, I mean, the transition of me being the director of Nintendo World Report to John being director of Nintendo Report tied in when I had children. We are recording this on my oldest kid's 6th birthday, so it's been 6+ years as John as director. It's now your employee review right now.
No.
But like,
let's talk about Kitty 64 and why we don't have any coverage of it.
Famous last words.
Actually, okay, hang on. Kitty 64 is, I believe, a sequel to Heart Chain Kitty.
Really?
Heart Chain Kitty is one of the worst things I have ever played.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
But Kitty 64 is new. Second chances. We believe in them.
Yeah, they put 64 in the title. There's been a bunch of games. I'm not going to name any games except for Heart Chain Kitty because it sucks. But there's been a bunch of other games that have done like the N64 branding on their title. Which feels very targeted at me as a dumb N64
I don't know.
fan.
This does look like somebody played a lot of fucking Gex.
Good.
Why?
They're all They're all poorly designed. Half of them don't have enemies to fight. Like, it's just go through this level, find the 10 coins, you go to the next level.
Okay, so you're describing a lot of N64 platformers.
Yeah.
Most of them, like, Gex has enemies.
Yeah.
I mean, they are racially and culturally offensive, but it does have enemies.
It has a challenge to it. Like,
putting up with Dana Gould's voiceover.
I can't describe these without specifically calling out these games, and they all seem to be made by very nice people, and I don't want to, like, be mean, because it's definitely their first game.
Games are hard.
But yeah, they're all just like, here's a square room, there's 10 coins, find the 10 coins, move on to next. Like, there's no enemies, there's no hazards, you're never in danger, there is nothing to these games. It's somebody's first game ever, and they're all on Switch, and they all get nice little Nintendo Life articles written about them because they have N64 graphics. Ooh.
And Nintendo Life probably sells copy of the games on their store.
Oh, you can 100% buy a copy of the game through Nintendo Life's website.
We're going to straight shoot now? Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Nintendo, when it comes to Nintendo Life, yeah, I don't give a fuck. Nintendo Life is a corrupt, horrible website that can die in a fire.
Wow. All right. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for Radio
and now they're owned by Ziff Davis. So, well, I guess partially. Right. I think Ziff Davis owns stock in them. So they probably will
die in a fire.
But the famous last words that I did when John became director, and I kind of tried to go back into the background, but I was like, you know what, I'll be a reviews editor. Like, that's, you know,
that works out well. Ask Johnny about that.
And then, I mean, that was even looking back, I was like, Johnny did it. That can't be that dumb of an idea. It was because this was 2018, end of 2017, when I think we did this transition. What happened over the ensuing years is just a bajillion freaking games came out on Switch.
Oh yeah,
and
we gave up.
I had a kid and then proceeded to I think in 2018 to like early 2020, which is when I was like, I can't do this anymore. Probably reviewed more than a game a week. Like, it's insane. I mean, it does also help that when you have a young child, you become an insomniac. And what are you going to do with that time? I guess play a lot of Switch games, review them, and start making videos. I'm going to play
Girls Racy Racer.
Yeah. Get a Senran Kagura pinball. I can knock that out while he's having his bottle. But like, there was a point where early on in the Switch's life, it was like, no, we should be on top of this. You know, like this system isn't a tire fire like Wii U. We can cover a lot of these games. It'll be great. And like, there was a slow drip in 2017 because Nintendo did make it a little bit of a walled garden at the start. And then as it opened up, like, there were still a lot of good games. You had a lot of like, whether it's from, you know, third-party publishers or indies that had not missed Wii U, hadn't been on a Nintendo platform, that were all getting ported over, and it was a really fun, exciting time. And then I want to say it was probably 2020 is when it started to go way off the rails. Maybe I'm a little off on exactly the timing, but that's when it would be like, oh, there's like 35 games coming out a week. Like, the AAA clock started. And once again, like, between me, John, and even Jordan Rudek, who is now reviews editor, I think my title on the site still says reviews editor, but that has been Jordan's domain by himself for a while.
Jordan doesn't get the credit he deserves for essentially being the third person that runs the site.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Jordan's great.
but like, the three of us would look at the eShop, and I used to like go there. Even it always ran like shit. I would go to the coming soon section and start to be like, all right, like, let's see what's coming up. Does this look interesting? And that was not an exercise in futility in 2018, 2019. Now I go there and I'm just like terrified. And it sucks because I know that there are games that are actually like diamonds in the rough that are interesting. Even, I mean, it's a game that thankfully Jordan and I both like heard about almost simultaneously. A game called Master Key that like looks like an old Game Boy game. There's a video up on our YouTube channel, article on the website. Go check it out. That was a game that, at a glance on the eShop, I would think that's garbage. Turns out it's a pretty neat, unique game. But you have to sift through crap to get to any of this. Like, who is actually doing the sifting? It's terrible user experience.
Like, at this moment, like, NWR, what it was when we had like 40 fucking writers at one point. would almost be incredibly useful just because of the sheer amount of stuff that exists. But like I have a very low average review score because I got assigned just garbage, just plates of garbage.
You say assigned, but I feel like sought out.
Well, so let me rephrase. The people who were securing the review codes were filtering off the top before they put the emails out. And so we were left with the game where you play as a crocodile trying to knock over towers of sheep on the DS.
I mean, keep in mind also that DS era, we're dealing with physical copies.
Oh, yeah, until the DSiWare came out, and then things really hit the fan. But
DSiWare, I adore DSiWare, but boy, that should have been the canary in the coal mine for what we see with the eShop now.
98% of it is the worst game you've ever played. It's amazing. Or it's just light. The flashlight was the breaking point for me mentally.
I played a lot of Sudoku on that thing.
But
me too.
The challenge of just like, hey, how can I go in here and figure out what's good or not? And the answer is I go and I have it bookmarked. I have it fucking bookmarked. All right, so I'm gonna tell a story. Don't browse the eShop on your Switch. It just doesn't work. Browse it on the web. And Nintendo actually at one point in the recent-ish future hid the show me the releases that have come out sorted by release date. That used to be a link.
Can you send me that? Can you send me that link?
Yeah, so I have to build it. I have to build it from search queries, and I have bookmarked it on my computer because that's the only way to actually see it. So I have this whole thing now where I just go there every day, and I look at it, and I think to myself, I wonder if that's any good. I wonder if that's any good. That's definitely no good. I wonder if that's any good. And I'll never know because I'm not going to download 7 days. Why? I don't know. It like immediately I get hit with the age verification, which by the way, if you're curious, the earliest I've gotten away with on the age verification so far is 1890. So Nintendo just doesn't give a fuck. I have put in like 1470 and it's like, we think you typoed. And I'm like, damn. It's like, I thought I might get
I'm honestly surprised there is a lower limit.
But like most of the stuff on there, like I'm now in 7 Days' article, and it's just pictures of anime girls talking at me, but at like oblique angles for some reason. So many Dutch angles. There's so many fucking Dutch angles in these images, and it's like, okay, well that's not helpful. But
James, if you want to play these games, we can get your review code.
No, that's the thing. Like this is
this
is for me.
You reference like having all those writers might be helpful at this point, but like let's say that we did cover every game that came out on the eShop. Let's say that every one of those got a video review.
Yeah,
I think it would hurt our
definitely
analytics standing.
Yeah,
like it would be bad. It would be actively bad for us to cover all of this stuff.
But like there's stuff in here that's we shouldn't cover all the stuff, but there's stuff in here that like downward.
Yeah, like stuff that could get missed.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Is this a good game or not? I don't know. Like looking at it, it's in that border realm of like, this might be something we're seeing. Like I don't need someone to tell me that Mind's Descent bundle Darkwood plus The Gap is bad. You know how I know it's bad? Because they spelled their name wrong in the eShop and it's Mind's Decent bundle. And it's been that for a week. And they haven't caught it. That's all the hint you need when they spell their own game wrong and call it Mind's Decent bundle. Not even a good bundle. It's decent.
No, it's descended to I mean, at this point, it is sort of just, you know, me, Neil Jordan, wading through the eShop and like with divining rods, looking for things that might hit.
Right.
Because for me, it's also like, it's not even just, will this game be good? It's, does this game look like something that if I put it in a thumbnail, somebody will click on?
Yeah.
And it's horrible to say, but there's been a lot of times where I'll get an email about, oh, it's a Metroidvania roguelike. And I'm like, that's probably fine, but nobody cares.
Right. Like there's 30 of those.
20 of those coming out this week.
Yeah.
Like,
and one of them is called Korean Rail Simulator, but it's also marked as a roguelike. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, technically, if you do crash the train, you do have to start all over. That's actually true to life.
There is this weird, like, also our words don't mean anything anymore.
Yep.
Right. Life is a roguelike.
Yeah, like, so there is a certain honesty to get it back to the E3 conversation. There's a certain honesty that came with E3. Like E3 was all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
but
I do. Everybody being mad about like, oh, it costs $250,000 for a
that's not that much money
on Summer Games Fest. It's like, do you have any idea how much it costs for a publisher to get into E3?
Yeah. It's like you're going to get 2 million views of a highly activated audience that is literally your target demographic.
Yeah,
you're going to have you're anytime you buy ads on TV, you're hoping that like a high percentage of your audience is target demo. And this is 100%. Like that's unbelievable. But like if you went to E3, there was a certain filtering effect of like, okay, well, at a minimum, someone's putting money into this game.
Yeah.
And you got to see it and touch it. Like that's the thing with Summer Games Fest is who's actually going to touch these games. A relatively small number of outlets are getting brought in.
And it is a thing.
Go ahead.
Why it's not E3, and I don't think it ever will be E3. And it's not that, I mean, like E3 was cut off to the public, and I mean, I can speak
until it wasn't, and then oh God.
I mean, yeah, and like some of those plans for the public E3, but I mean that was already when E3 was spiraling the drain. But even like let's go back to like James when we both went to E3 2009 when it like kind of opened back up after a couple years in the wilderness and in Santa Monica and stuff. It was, if you wanted to get to E3, it was really easy to get to E3. Like, I mean, I did.
We got 3 people in that year.
Yeah. Like I have a friend who lives in LA that was like, yo man, can I get to E3? I'm like, yep. Like,
done.
We're gonna get you in. Like, he's hung out with Johnny a couple times. It's great. Happy about that.
We're gonna sign you as the co-author on an article that you didn't write. There we go. Like, done. You're in. Congratulations.
There's a will. There's a way. You could get an E3, but I mean, the reality is that like you could get an E3 and then you'd have to wait online. Some of the cool stuff would only be behind closed doors.
It was the connections you had.
Yeah, but it still was like. It was somehow easier to get into than Summer Games Fest because Summer Games Fest is invite only. Like, I think this is the 4th year that they've done it.
Yes.
We didn't get invited the first 2 years. I think how it works is it's basically like, you know, I think it's like Keeley, just like it's either whoever throws the money at him or whatever games he likes. That's what's on the show floor for Summer Game Fest. And then the PR reps for those games are like, we would like to invite these outlets. I believe that's how it goes. So last year, I mean, you think they had Disney Illusion Island, they had Sonic Superstars. There was a good chunk of Switch content there, and I think last year was like, you know, the biggest year of Summer Game Fest, like the actual like Playdays event that they had. And this year we got invited again, but it still is a very limited window to get in there. And like, yeah, you do have your big players that are there, whoever's left, but it's not to the expanse of E3. And I think, I mean, it's honestly probably in the event's best interest to not have it get to the levels of E3, but at the same time, you can't get to be the new E3 if you don't become E3.
Well, it has a bit of an identity crisis.
Yeah, it's a balancing act too. Of you want to have enough voices. If you're a reader, like I'm not speaking right now, I'm taking off my hat as somebody who's done this. Like as a reader, you want there to be enough voices that you can find someone whose opinion sort of sidles up to your own, and that's really difficult because one, we have the consolidation of voices where these like all those outlets that are now under the Ziff Davis brand, they're not going to all exist anymore.
In a year.
There's already been layoffs at Eurogamer, and basically the standard was, do you live in Europe? Because Eurogamer had a lot of non-European staff who
I think it's only UK. I think it's only the folks in the UK, and then you do have your places like Digital Foundry, you know, John's favorite site, Nintendo Life, that they're a little bit sheltered because they're only, I think it's something where like, you know, Reed Pop and now Ziff Davis like has stocks in Digital Foundry and Nintendo Life.
I know Digital Foundry is somehow separated from like even Eurogamer.
But the consequence of that is like you have this, because you have the consolidation of sites, but as they are by headcount reduction, largely forced to coordinate together. they're going to send less people to these events just as a sheer function of we have less people, therefore we must send less people, and we have less budget to do it with. E3 was very expensive to attend.
Yeah.
And there's going to be less people seeing these things and playing these things. And to be honest, from a PR standpoint, that's probably to your benefit. Like I look at how they handled, EA's about to launch their first NCAA football game in 12 years, 13 years.
I think
10,
2014.
The last one came out in 2013.
Okay.
It was NCAA 14.
So they've basically brought in a handful of people to play it at this like highly curated event where you were essentially given, I want to say I heard they were given like 3 30-minute segments to play the game. And it was just play now mode. Like at E3, that would have been probably what the demo looked like.
Yeah.
But we would have at least had the opportunity to like, okay, and I'm going to hit you with 8,000 questions that this PR rep is not trained to answer. Let's do it. Tell me about why there is I can't even go into it. There's so much shit in that game that's like come out since this. It's amazing.
I think it was that first E3 where I was like, we don't have a relationship with EA. I want to review the Wii Madden games. I found whatever dude was at the booth demoing like Madden 09 on Wii and like started just having like passionate, excited questions about it. And the dude like gave me like was just like, what the here's the business card. Follow up with me later. We'll get you a copy when the game's out. And that does actually have a relationship with EA for a while, which is cool. But it is just like I would not have had that opportunity if I wasn't at E3 to actually like show the fact that I gave a shit about this. And then have the passion to cover that. And I did have the opportunity with Wii Madden games as one of the 4 people on the planet that cared about them to actually like get to some of those exclusive events talking about stuff.
That was
you're on the back of one of those boxes.
I am. I have it. I have a copy. It says Nintendo will report. I said the franchise mode was good in a preview.
that was also the same EA E3 that former site member Nick DeMola and I almost got thrown out of, so that was cool. Because we got assigned the Charm Girl Squad video, and I believe I said way too loud in an empty theater, "What the fuck is this?" To be fair, we were the only people in that theater. Probably should have thought my voice might carry. But in my defense, it was a game about teasing your hair with the Wii remote, and what the fuck is this? Is the appropriate response to that.
Accurate. That should also be on the back of the box.
Meanwhile, we're having a hard time hearing them because in the next video theater over, they're playing the Mass Effect 2 trailer. It's the stupidest shit in the world, and they're just like dead staring at us for the rest of the presentation.
But it is that access that like I did as I feel like a lot of us nostalgic folk do. I looked back at our E3 2014 coverage because it's 10 years since that. I watched Nintendo's Bizarro digital event this week, just threw it on while I was working. I mean that is such a sweaty, desperate video. Oh my god! But I looked at our coverage and like we had an interview with Takashi Tezuka.
We did.
And we're pretty good. Turns out us Nintendo dorks pretty good at asking questions about Nintendo games.
Which interview was that?
This was for Woolly World and Mario Maker.
Okay. I was wondering if that
we had
was
another one. There was another. We had another one with him. I forget.
Ziplash
was. That was the one about snack foods with Risa Tabata and Tanabe was there.
Yeah, we're like so much of it is we're not allowed to talk about. Like, I wonder if we can talk about that one now. But there's like, don't talk about thing, and I'm like, why? This is like the most mundane thing to get mad about. Why can't we talk about this?
Yeah, it was just talking about Utz chips with some Japanese developers. Good times. Yeah.
Specifically, they don't talk about the food that they tried for this demo. Yeah. It's like, who the fuck cares?
Definitely, maybe, Tanabe and Tabata are real ones. Like, I also got to do a phone interview with them for Dylan's Dead Heat Breakers. Once again, one of the 4 people that enjoyed that game.
Did they really even work on those Dylan games?
No, Tanabe was like the pretty because it's Vanpool, doing all the weird ass Tingle games. I asked about the Tingle games and they got very excited.
There's a PR up going, Jesus Christ.
Yep. Like, no, we gotta cut them off in a couple of years.
Like, so it again, but it feeds into the whole like what content is going to be available to people to consume. Of like the outlets aren't there to produce this kind of written content, obviously. So like you could do video interviews, and video interviews are more difficult to parse. They get aggregated in a way that I think is bad.
Yeah.
And you see this like most acutely in like fucking professional wrestling, where like one comment will get taken out of an interview. And it's like, it's this fucking thing, right? It's like, it's a 2.5 hour interview. And like, those are really interesting because interviews are when people actually speak out of character.
Yep.
Versus, all the other times they're in characters. Like, you get interesting stuff out of it. But then it's like, so-and-so thinks this other person is a dickbag. And it's like, no, that's not what they said. You can take this one quote where he says, people might think he's a dickbag. And it's like, see? He's a dickbag. There it is.
As a Packer fan coping with a certain former quarterback, I've listened to way too many of those at full. And no, he's just a shithead. Like there's no defense anymore.
He's in a yurt right now, and he is studying the
total
science.
Darkness.
It's fine.
Doing ayahuasca, and listening to dolphin sex noises to heal his Achilles.
Thinking about running for vice president. It's fine.
It's just what you do when you're a man of the people.
Everything's great. I mean, to be fair, didn't he go to Cal? Like, isn't that enough of a red flag? Like, hey, this man spent 4 years in Berkeley. Just be aware.
Grew up on a llama farm, went to Berkeley.
Be cognizant. Things aren't normal here. Like, he might have hidden normality for a while, but behind the scenes, absolutely not. So then I guess besides what's Aaron Rodgers up to today, besides literal and possibly figurative fart smelling, what so what are we doing for Summer Games Fest, such as it is? We don't expect there to be much Nintendo stuff there because Nintendo is in this weird holding pattern.
There might be some indie stuff, but
I mean, there was already. I guess it's technically. I don't even know. Is the Guerrilla Collective thing that was today? Was that Summer Game? I don't know what counts and what doesn't.
That would be nice to know.
Like, it's around like people who are commemorating.
Season.
Yeah, we are essentially celebrating a dead holiday at this point around. This is
us making up Christmas to account for Saturnalia. Like,
right. We still have all these traditions around Midsummer, but we don't actually celebrate Midsummer anymore.
Yep.
But like, it's still there, but it's like a weird echo. I wonder if we start to see those go away.
Like, I mean, from Nintendo World Report, like Alex Arona is going to be at Summer Games Fest. I mean, it's largely one of those things where it's like. He wanted to go, so not going to stop him. If you're here, and you want to go do stuff, go do stuff, man. There's not going to be that much for us there. There's going to be some things. Like, I mean, I think Sega's there. They got a Monkey Ball game coming out soon. Sonic game,
just for Switch.
Yeah.
And they misspelled their own main character's name wrong in the press release. That was cool.
Sonic Shadow Generations or whatever that's called. Like that's probably going to be there. Sonic has been, I think, at every Summer Game Fest Playdays thing or whatever. But like, there's going to be some Switch things. It just, I think the thing that makes it different for us and why our coverage of it is going to be a lot more like, well, if there's news, we're going to cover it, and on the off chance there's anything earth-shattering, we'll do more. Is that like, not to use a inside baseball term that John and I have been making fun of for over a year now. There's not going to be a lot of big hitters for Nintendo, for the Nintendo console at this event. Like, I mean, honestly,
the big hitters were done in 2022. So
no, it was after Tears of the Kingdom. There were no more big hitters. It was all done.
That was the end.
Let's ignore the fact that Super Mario Wonder sold more than 10 million copies. And I mean, at this point, the big hitters are probably done. There might be something cool this holiday. We'll find out in like a week or two. But for Summer Games Fest, like, there will be a couple things. I mean, I'll pay attention to the mainstream. There will probably be some cool stuff there. Probably some really neat indies and Day of the Devs, which follows the Summer Game Fest stream and is usually the more interesting part of it for me. But there's nothing that's gonna drive traffic primarily.
No,
it's just going to be things
right,
of
well,
note. Like even last year, we had Alex Arona and Joel DeWitt both went out to LA last year, and there's a really cool Disney Illusion Island interview that sold me on that game. That game's great. But other than that, like there wasn't a hell of a lot else going on out there.
Why is it in LA?
Yeah,
because that's where Jeff Keighley is, and it's where E3 was.
Oh,
that's the thing. Like,
is that it? Because it's a bad city for this.
It only exists to vaguely impersonate E3, and I think we kind of just have to get to a point where we realize, like, unless Nintendo starts attending it, like, if somebody wants to go, fine. But there isn't really, like, there's the part of this that's worth covering is there's going to be a Nintendo Direct at the end of June.
Yeah,
like
so at some point.
That's the echo of E3 that matters to us, not whatever Jeff Keighley wants to pretend matters.
And that was largely the case even during the E3. Like, I remember, Neil, you and I being dragged to the EA and Ubisoft events back-to-back every single goddamn year. Until the year that EA decided if you went to the Ubisoft one, you didn't get to come in.
Yep.
Or was it the other way around? Was it Ubisoft?
I think yeah.
Because then Kohler posted the picture of the Ubisoft event empty.
Yep.
Because of that incredibly stupid decision.
I mean, and those, I mean, honestly, like, I feel like we got our ways into the EA Ubisoft events because we just wanted to go to E3 press conferences. There was no reason for us to be there live. I mean, there's less of a reason to be at these events live now, because they all are made for the live stream audiences. At least like back in, 10, 15 years ago, they weren't necessarily designed solely for the live stream audience.
James Cameron. Get excited.
Though even E3 was doing that at the point where, I mean, as soon as Nintendo started doing Treehouse Live from their booth, like, they're essentially producing the content that we would produce.
Yeah.
But they get to control the messaging of it.
Have way more access, developer interviews. I mean, it's been a slow turn. I mean, you can just look over, like, the legacy of Nintendo Report. Like, there used to be a time at E3, like, 20 years ago where it'd be multiple, developer interviews. For multiple games. And we did have, when E3 was still around, we'd probably get like the token one a year, whether it's, Kamiya for Wonderful 101 or Tezuka or, Tanabe, whoever. But there's like that kind of access is limited to like I feel like it's like, I don't want to denigrate what we do, but like to your actual journalists, like whenever you do see an interview with Stephen Totillo when he was with Axios got to interview the Super Mario Brothers Wonder leads, like, and honestly, I mean, in the grand scheme of people asking interesting questions to Nintendo developers, like, Totillo's real good at it. But I do think that there's a certain level of it that it's not just like self-aggrandizing because it's our thing, but like you're missing out on a layer of coverage by cutting out the independent sector, which is something that's really happening, because I don't think, no matter what people might say as far as how trustworthy these YouTubers are and how, all of us independent reviewers are just being bought off because we get review codes or whatever. YouTubers are not the same as the independent media that covered games tremendously through like 2000 to 2015.
Who have a long tail.
Yeah, one of the major differences being that we don't just upload the ROM as soon as we get a review.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean, what's a fun one? Getting the ROM and then being accused of that. You produce a boxed copy around the launch and say you got it from a mom and pop shop, and you guys are all full of shit.
Oh, God.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of those mom and pop shops though who sell you the game like a month in advance.
It's weird when like the
for mom and pop shops,
the
they get
video's
the game
like upscaled on a PC. Like that's really interesting. I don't have a Switch that does that.
That's the other cool thing about mom and pop shop is that if you get it there, then Metroid Dread runs in 4K.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, that's a little known secret about the mom and pop shops. They get better versions of the games.
I do remember one of the last E3 interviews I did, and when I say who it was, but actually, Neil, do you remember?
I don't know.
It's Tak Fuji.
Oh, yeah.
Which you can imagine, that's an, oh, Jesus, what have I signed up for moment.
Yeah.
Now, do that interview not knowing you're going to do the interview when you get there.
Yep.
Yeah. When he just walked away for a little while. and then came back with an electric guitar.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, was that you and TYP did that one, right?
Yeah. He just starts poking TYP with an electric guitar. Why? I don't know. Was I trying not to laugh the whole time? Yeah, of course I was, because it was so stupid. And it was making TYP so uncomfortable because he's getting poked with the fucking guitar. But like, yeah, like most of our interviews were non-events. Most of the interviews were late in the game, you get a PR rep. But you sometimes get good stuff out of a PR rep because like a PR rep is different than the person who's just sitting at a demo station.
Yeah.
That person's been trained for like a few hours, maybe. Whereas a PR rep, like they've been assigned this game. This is their project. Getting this game to market, they've been on it for probably a year at this point. Like if it's this close to release, like they're not new to this game. Like they've been shepherding it long before we knew it existed. Like,
I mean, and odds are they're probably a former journalist. So I
mean, not an unusual number of them, no. And like some people, or maybe they're doing this game now. There are people whose name who we have talked to about a game because they were repping it for some reason or another. But like there are these moments of like I'm talking to somebody. Maybe it's not a big Nintendo name. Maybe it's a name that you haven't heard of, but I know who they are, about a product they're on, and you get interesting information out of them, like the Metal Gear Solid 3 3DS port.
I was thinking that didn't we have like a roundtable interview for that?
We did. We got a bunch of stuff out of that interview.
Yeah.
No, Kojima wasn't there, but the person who was actually running that project
was. I forget who it was.
We got good stuff out of that. I met with some smaller devs, and we got good things out of those too. And I do worry that like the video format isn't necessarily good for this either. Like if you're doing a long sit down, that's fine. But like I don't think any of our sit downs we had with convicted investment criminal. Who claims ownership of Sonic.
I forgot.
I don't think any of those are good videos.
No.
At all.
No.
But like there was stuff from them, and we learned things. But like
about Rodea the Sky Soldier and Ivy the Kiwi.
The Kiwi, yeah. Ivy the Kiwi was the first one we did. In his creamsicle suit.
Yep.
Nobody's gonna like sit down to watch an Ivy the Kiwi interview. They just aren't. And they're not going to read it either.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone's going to engage with that in any form.
No, Xseed had the booth right next to Nintendo. Video, they had to do something.
But like actually being able to talk about it and like write up stuff that uses, like write that up in the context of other content. So like if you're writing up impressions from it, you could then use the things you got from the interview in those impressions. And so even if you can get your hands on the things now in Day of the Devs, that's going to be difficult to do. I haven't actually ever considered going to Day of the Devs. They have a local event too, I believe, or the games, whatever, Summer Games Fest one. Is it just like hosted in like a hotel ballroom?
I believe Summer Game Fest. I believe it's called Summer Game Fest Play Days. That is in an event space. And I believe that the event space can be expandable. I honestly don't know how much bigger it will be this year or could be in the future. And I think Day of the Devs, I don't know if that's integrated with Play Days. I know Day of the Devs has a couple events here and there. I think it was last year where there was like the Indie Mix event that got shut down. Because I think they didn't have like the right fire codes. There was something.
That sounds right.
Something real garbage that happened with that.
I went to a couple Indie Mix events. That all seems on par.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's one of those things that like the networking aspect of E3 and even these other events. Which honestly, if you're a person wanting to like break into this junk, first off, don't unless you
don't do that.
Don't do it. Just do it for funsies. Go to PAX East or PAX West. Still going to be crowded, but you'll at least actually have access. The things that I miss about those events are, I mean, one, like hanging out with NWR folks and getting shit done, and like networking with people. Like I made friends, like just shooting the shit with different developers or PR reps over the years. To the point where like I think I went to that that ill-fated PAX East right before the world shut down, where got back from being like, oh, am I going to get COVID and die? But like that one, like I realized like there was also the era of PAX East that I would go to where I'd be like, there is literally one Wii U game on the floor.
Oh yeah.
I will cover Affordable Space Adventure, and then I guess go hang out and play board games with my friends.
Yeah.
And we had a panel. It was fun times at those PAX East. But I spent most of my last PAX East in that weird one where we weren't shaking hands. We were doing elbow bumps because no one knew how to act in March 2020. Just talking to people, just hanging out, because that was the fun part of that. That was honestly where I found out more about games, would just be having those conversations with people. Hearing, like, I always love hearing the passion of an indie developer talking about whatever they're working on.
I do wonder, like, if E3 was a thing still, which it's not, would I still have the, like, I know I had a reputation as an E3 in person where I basically did home team and away team, and like, oh, James sleeps for like 3 hours. What the fuck? Why do you do that? And then crashing. Like, I wonder what my body would do now. Like, would I just die?
Yeah,
I just die? The last 3 E3s, I would go home with the worst that I went to. I would go home with the worst sinus infection, just increasingly worse every year, because I would just run myself to shit.
Oh yeah, like I there was one year, I think it was 2010, where people were like, I got pulled aside by 2 veterans who were like, you two need to stop. And specifically myself and Carly, it's like, you two need to stop. What are you doing?
I tried to hang with you guys. I would be like the last person before you two, because I'd be like, all right, guys, it's 4 a.m. I'm going to bed.
2 more hours. I was like, I was busy writing up everybody's schedule. Why? They can write up their own schedule. I'm like, but they won't. But they won't. You know they won't. I was uploading media. We have a home team for that. And I'm just like, what would I do? And I'd probably die, is the answer. I'd probably die by day 2. But
yeah,
like
it depends on the year that you would go. Like 2010 was that the 3DS announcement. There was a lot of stuff to do.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it was nuts.
If you went to like E3 2016, by day 2 you'd be done. Like,
you were done. Yeah, it was great. I loved it. Yeah, like I do wonder, like, longer form. I do wonder if like the end of June as being this important month eventually happens, because it doesn't feel like it's important. Like it feels like we're telling ourselves June is important. But
I mean, honestly,
I do think there's value to kind of equidistantly spacing your announcements throughout the year. I mean, it's the reason that like Nintendo doesn't just do June, they do January and September as well. Right. Like there is a logic to that, and Xbox and PlayStation have essentially embraced that too at this point.
I mean, I do think you can even tell it by Nintendo's releases over the past few years, and just the industry in general. The holiday season is less important than it's ever been. It's not that it's not important. It's just that the reason why you'd have that May-June timeframe for E3 would be because, like, it originated as a retailer event where it would be, a lot of that would not be to media. It would be to, like game buyers at Kmart and, I don't know, Sears. And like being like, how much of Donkey Kong Country do you want to buy?
How many million copies will you buy?
And doing that in May and June was the right time, because you'd want to get that so that way they'd put their orders in for later in the year. I do think that there's a value for it, and that it is that, like, you can set up a fall lineup around June, but I think you even look at it now. Well, I guess. Wait, no. Sony's State of Play was in May, and that was kind of starting to do that setup for the fall.
Right.
I mean, Nintendo said June. They did not say when. If I were a betting man, I'd say we're probably about 2 weeks out from their direct.
It's going to be the 19th.
Yeah, that's what I'd expect. I don't think it'll be next week.
It would be really nice if they would give us a little more warning than they do.
This is the most warning we've ever gotten. They confirmed that they're doing something in June, largely because
it's true.
They had to talk about the new console. Like, so,
but it's like, it would be nice if they just gave us a fucking date. Like, this weird, like, we're going to announce the date 3 days out, I think is deliberately done to decrease expectation.
Yep.
But it just makes us have to go like, oh God, all right, well, this could show up at any minute. Let's just be ready for it.
I mean, I had a run of, like, I think Indie Worlds and Nintendo Directs last year that it would be like during work things that I could not have it up in another screen. I literally had an on-site in which it was like, you know, like a bunch of people there talking about like, oh, introducing yourselves. And it got to me and I'm like, yo, they just announced Super Mario RPG being remade for Switch. Like, sorry, I got to look at this. This is important to me. Like, I'm the jerk here, but they just announced Super Mario Brothers Wonder. This seems cool.
God. All right. So to wrap, let's get us towards the conclusion point. Where do you think our website is in 3 years? Because this is y'all's job. I don't have to worry about this. I just have to keep.
John, you go first.
I just have to keep photoshopping. You do you.
So right now we're in this horror. Like it's the end of a console generation. There isn't a lot happening to make content about.
Nope.
Everyone is sort of burned out on the Switch. I think that this question right now is a little unanswerable just because like there's no data. Once Switch 2 is here, or at least announced, once there is that new hype cycle starting up, I think we'll get a much better feel for where we're at. Because we're also in this weird phase right now where we're not getting codes. Like we are sort of uncharted waters for how we cover Nintendo. Like how do we cover a Nintendo launch when Nintendo doesn't like us?
Yeah.
What's that gonna look like? So ask me this question this time next year and I think I'll have a much better answer for you. But I think we'll continue to pivot toward video. Like I don't necessarily like it. But that's clearly where this is going.
Yeah. I wonder how some content is presented if you pivot to video.
Yeah, I think there's we can't be afraid to say, like, there's going to be content that it's not about saying, how do we get this to work as a video? It's saying, what do we do instead?
Right.
I think there's things that we can't get too caught up on. How do we pivot this? It has to be, let's not do that then. If that's not working, let's not do it. Let's find something else to do instead. And I think we're still kind of figuring out exactly how that works. My goal for 3 years is to still have the site be here.
It's a strong goal.
That's the goal. Yeah.
How are you going to revive our message boards?
Discord.
Were you doing something like that? Wasn't there some conversation about the forums that you were looped into?
We tried to do an upgrade and things went sideways, and then I was like, "Oh, that was the hey, can James get admin access to the site backend?" No,
okay. We can
Neil, where are you going to be in 3 years? Retired?
Yeah. I do. I mean, we lived through the Wii U era, so I'm not necessarily worried about like if this. I mean, I'm not rooting for this to happen. I just have been following Nintendo for a very long time, and I expect them to somehow mess up the Switch 2 launch.
Right.
It should be a slam dunk success. Bombs,
right.
We're probably getting codes again, baby.
Oh boy.
Right. If it fails, it's good for us. Because it means less people covering Nintendo. It means Nintendo needs coverage, and they will come crawling back.
There were a lot less podcasts as the host of RFN. There were a lot less Nintendo podcasts during the Wii U era.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I do, and it's the kind of thing where like we lived through the Wii U era. I think it was. I feel like it was a telethon. Maybe it was like Carl who made the comment of just like, yo, Neil got us through the Wii U era. Like that should count for something. And I never really thought about it because I was kind of like so into it in that like 2012 to 2016 era that like it was just like, no, I just wanted to be here doing this. And I think that is the key more than any macro trends across the industry. It's just that like are the confluence of people that are doing stuff at Nintendo World Report, do we care? Do we give a shit? Because as long as there's that will, as long as there's a will, there's a way. And I think that the reality of it all is that what we've been doing for the past 25 years now, I mean, it evolved a lot. You can, because I'm stubborn and like to keep up the history of the website, you can go back and see the like weirdo blog posts that were posted 2000 talking about like Billy drinking Mountain Dew or whatever. And we evolved since then. There was the brief time period where I was really into the inverted pyramid for news stories. And we're going to continue to evolve. Some of that's going to be pivoting to video. Some of that's going to be finding new ways to do things. I mean, like, I don't think we need any more podcasts than we currently do. I think we're kind of at that limit. But as far as expanding beyond that, like, do we do books? I mean, Jordan, plug, Jordan put out a book last year, A Game in the Life by Jordan Rudek. Go check it out. It's cool. I got a copy behind me right now. Maybe we do stuff like that. Maybe we go full bore into just turning it into a Star Fox documentary house. Like, a lot of the goal that I have as owner is just sustainability. Like, I want to keep this around. Like, James, I assume you like what you're doing with RFN. Greg, you too, if you're still here.
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, but it's no secret to the listeners that I'm entirely out of touch with such things. So it would be the height of conceit for me to interrupt any of you while you actually think about things about.
I would like to hear how you consume content at this point, because it is harder to just to find it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's sad, but I mean, a lot of it is I consume less. I mean, that's just what's happening. Like the websites. I mean, that's
used to kind of with me too.
I used to enjoy reading some US Gamer that got shut down. Way before the Eurogamer got bought out or whatever. And as has been talked about, it's just a kind of pervasive thing. It just, you end up consuming less. I mean, yet there's definitely some transfer into watching YouTube stuff, but there's some of that, but no, a lot of it just amounts to, there's less of that. Even though I still read reviews on our site, and I still Silicon Era is still around. I read that and stuff, or some of the more historical type stuff like Hardcore Gaming 101, and it's completely divorced from news or whatever. But they still have. There's still articles on there I haven't read, so I'll still read stuff like that now and again. But yeah, I mean, it's just not a thing, like the amount. It's almost, it sneaks up on you because it's a slow transition. But it's like, think about probably how long I used to spend, reading articles on websites of all sorts, not just games, but a lot of it was games. And that just doesn't happen to the same extent. And no, I've never been, on Facebook or Twitter or any of that, so that was never a substitute. It just kind of dries up.
I've noticed that myself just recently. Of like, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll go do my internet rounds, and I'm done in like 5 minutes. And I'm like, I used to recall this taking a lot longer.
Yeah, it would take me like all day to get through my Google Reader.
Yeah, and it's like I'm done by. My alarm goes off at 7:30. I'm done by 7:35, and I'm working from home today. What am I going to do for the next 40 minutes? I guess I'll just go work out. Fuck it. Maybe one thing will have been posted by the time I'm done. It's like, I respect the answer of like, well, the goal is to keep this content here, because one of the things I worry about, we could never sell the site. Because there's too many hands in having made it who never made any money. Because nobody gets paid in Nintendo World Report.
I mean, I could tell you some stories about similar sites that have done that and just ruined friendships. And that's a line that I don't want to go down.
Yeah, like I would be extremely mad. But like the content that this site has is valuable, but as a consequence of it being on the line is ephemeral, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, I hope there's a backup. I'm pretty sure there's a backup.
There's backups.
Okay, that's good. There should be backups. I'm not saying anything crazy, but like, there should be backups.
It's limited, but there's also, attempts to repurpose some of that old content of, taking an old review for a GameCube game and making a period correct video for it, or we did one when Pokemon Snap, the new Pokemon Snap came out, where we took an old feature on Pokemon Snap and made a video version of that feature 20 years later.
Yeah, it was like a dream game for Pokemon Snap too.
Yeah, so there's obviously that's not a complete preservation of the site, but there is an effort to, let's make some of this old stuff is cool and matters. Let's let's present it in a new way as a way to sort of keep it around.
I mean, this is one of those things that's just like a sizable undertaking. Is that like, I mean, there is the preservation angle of the history of Planet GameCube, everything across the board. Whether, I mean, you guys are creeping up to 1,000 friggin' podcasts at this point.
That's a nightmare. Like
that's what, 2006. We're almost at the 20-year anniversary of RFN. Like that's absurd.
I had somebody
incredibly
ask
cool,
me, like,
but absurd.
Are you going to end the show at 1,000? And my thought was, I might have to end more than that. I can't even think about that. That's terrifying. But like,
I mean, like with all that old content, like, and maybe I'll just pose it to James, you and Greg, and even RFN listeners. Like, a thing that I've wanted to do is put that old content into some kind of format that has a little bit more, a little bit more long-term preservation, whether it's into a book or something else. It would be a pain in the ass undertaking that occasionally John Jordan and I like start to map out, and we're like, two of us have 2 kids each, and John's doing whatever John's doing. I don't know if we can do this right now, but if that's something that people have interest in, of being able to have whatever, a coffee table book of Planet GameCube stuff, let us know, and that will push us into actually doing things.
I actually think there's something here, and Greg, you touched on it. Like, I'm hoping this isn't just because I'm plowing through my 30s at this point. And it's that like, I've hit the peak nostalgia phase of life where I'm socially comfortable and have money and no longer have the concerns that come with lacking one or the other of those and have completed the part of brain rot that happens from, I'm going to say, 13 to 28. And I am, in a place now where I look back on my childhood I'm hoping it's not nostalgia, but like, I found that a lot of the content I consume now is more backwards looking, and not even necessarily backwards looking for things that I am interested in. I mean, I come on this show and talk about British home computers a lot. Why of all the people on this show am I the one talking about a home computer that was made 4 years before I was even fucking born, on a country I've never been to, that never released in a country I have been to? Why? Well, because I find that I'm more fascinated in sort of like understanding the historical precedent and like getting to these like things I don't know. I find that like learning is now more important than like seeing what I'm going to be playing in 6 months. And you need primary sources for that. And like, why aren't we our own primary source for some of this? Like, I feel like we could produce content for our site that leverages the individualized components that were, we could go back to the reviews. We could go back to clips from the podcast, regardless of what year that was. But then sort of frame that in a historical context of like, this is kind of like a definitive statement on what this game is in the year 2024 that came out in the year, let's say, 2006. Just to try to put it in the podcast era. So what you're saying is, do you want me to make the definitive history of Excite Truck? Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, yes. like if we could actually talk to somebody who worked on Excite Truck, which we probably could. I want to know about the stupid, the stupid. Like, you could talk about the fact that for a while in the Nintendo World Report forums, everybody was using the really bad low polygon driver head that was in every single car because it was 2 polygons and a face mask to each side of it. And like, that was just the icon everybody was using because they thought it was funny, because it was. But like, being able to talk to somebody who worked on that and tell them that story and ask like, what was that face? What was that face? You're basically describing the reason why when we did, if we ever did a telethon again, I mean, Child's Play is also a great charity, but we did the when Mario 35 died, we did the Mario is Dead funeral stream. We did it for the Video Game History Foundation. One, because it seemed very important with a game that was just going to be removed. But that's why I love the Video Game History Foundation, and also, I mean, John's been working with them on helping them with video stuff too. Is that
that's kind of what they're all about. Is it's not just like, oh, let's have these old games to play. It's like, no, tell the story of these games. Have the ephemera around all of this stuff. Have old weird press kits. Look at the old press conferences. Look at how these games were covered at the time by having, all these thousands of magazines scanned in. I mean, it is something. I mean, you're just clawing at something that if we had infinite time to do it, absolutely, I want to pour through all the old Planet GameCube Nintendo Report archives and show the coolest parts of it to people now.
I think that's a thing where you can do multi-format for the same project. Like you could say, like, we have a project that's going to go after the Odama. Why? Well, because it's Odama and it's weird as shit. And there are people listening right now who were not alive when Odama came out. And they do not know why I'm talking about Odama, Yoot Saito's... Yoot Saito was on something. As being this weird thing, but I want to make it clear. Nintendo had to create a clip so that you could put the microphone that was originally developed for fucking Mario Party in their pinball game on your controller. Why? Well, because the bongo drums would interact with the microphone in a way they weren't happy with, so they canceled using the bongo drums. And now you're thinking, bongo drums? James, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, let me tell you about the origins of the studio that ultimately went and made all the 3D Mario games you love. At one point, they made a game for Donkey Kong you control him with a fucking set of congos.
And then they ported that to Wii, and you used the Wii Remote nunchuck, and it was bad.
Yeah, because it turns out the game itself is fun because you're sitting there banging on a goddamn drum.
Yeah.
But there's a weirdness there of like, you can have a written component that goes with that leverages media and audio and stuff. And you can have a video component that reuses the content we have, and they would complement each other. Like the video one might be more opinionated, where the written one might be more factual driven. And like they actually become sort of a one sort of drives you to the other. And like video, there's a golden time frame of how long a video should be on YouTube for maximum discoverability. And I want to say it's like 12 to 20, something like that.
I think it's like, what is it? I think it might have changed at some point.
Well, I mean, it's not super firm because once, like we kind of talked about earlier, it depends on the, your channel. Right? Yeah. If you're a channel that hosts hour-long videos, then your videos should be an hour long. Right. If you're a channel that hosts 5-minute videos, they should be 5 minutes long.
But there's definitely like a too short where it's YouTube's like, eh.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's a point at which you don't want your ads to out time.
Yeah, usually
it's why short form animation has essentially disappeared from YouTube.
Yeah.
What up YouTube? And then it's just the end of the video and an ad plays. Yeah. A post roll plays. A mandatory post roll plays.
Just a heads up. I need to book it off this podcast very soon.
Okay, I was about to wrap us. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, like I actually think that would be good. Like you can go to the Nintendo World Report Discord. I can't remember what the URL for it is, but there's a link on the website. It's under chat.
Yeah, it is.
And give us your thoughts on like what you would like to do there, like what you'd like to see us do, what you'd like to see, what kind of content you think that we could do that would be differentiating, which is another important factor. Like just not the same shit you can get anywhere.
And that we would care to do, because that's part of it, is that when we're doing this for fun, we want to find an intersection of we actually like doing it and people like to read, watch, or listen to it.
Yes. And so figuring that out is going to be tough, but I think with your goal of like, I want the site to still be relevant in 3 years, I think we probably do have to continue to pivot away from just like news and reviews. And
you can't just keep doing what worked in 1999.
Yeah. Because even reviews, like, people can watch someone play on launch day.
I mean, it is funny in that, like, if you go look at games media for the past 10 years, everybody talks about, like, oh, reviews are terrible. Like, just got to do them. They don't do a lot of traffic. Like, reviews have typically done, like, reviews of games that people care about usually do pretty well, especially if it has hit.
Timely?
I mean, timeliness is key there, but like, I mean, that's always why it is like, pre-launch reviews that are embargoed or something. Like, it's always like, like you'll probably get some traffic from that. There's a necessary.
But even if you can just find stuff that other people miss, like we covered Wizardry, and nobody else reviewed it.
Yeah.
And that did very well because we were the only people who cared.
Yeah. But you just gotta find that market. But that's not...
You gotta keep an eye out for stuff where you go like, oh, I care about this and I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. I wonder this might be a thing.
Yeah. I mean, the Picross people, their PR has my email address. Greatest success of my life.
They love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because found out that I cover Picross. It works out.
Sure. Perfect. The Jupiter folks have you on speed dial.
Yep.
God.
The time difference makes it a delay, but it's good.
All right. Well, I think it's gonna wrap this conversation up for us. I want to thank both of you for joining us. I know, like I said, it was kind of short notice. It was a good conversation to have. I think I learned a bit about how my own site operates, despite having been here for like approaching 15 years or more. I don't know, a lot of years.
Buddy, I think you're past 15 years.
Fuck.
It's the end of 07.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I've been here since early 08, and you were here before me. So,
I mean, I was here in that weird, like, when my title was just staff.
Yeah.
The only person with the title staff. I didn't have an email address because Wendy never gave me one. But Neil, John, I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us anytime.
Yeah, and where can people find you right now? This isn't a setup. I know the conversation, but I just wanted to throw it to you.
Well, you can go to youtube.com/NinWRTV. Otherwise, I haven't left Twitter.
It's
so
NINWRTV, to be clear.
Yeah. NinWRTV.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm on Twitter at JTSKnight92. Or just type in John Reardon because there's only one person with my dumb last name, so very easy to find.
Yeah, I have like
hoodie wearing Packer players.
I know one other John Reardon, and he's dead. So
there's a couple Neil Ronahans, but I have knocked those people off of Google. Holy Lord.
SEO champion Neil Ronahan.
You can still find me on Twitter. I basically just use it to like tweet at bands at this point. I'm still there at Enron10. I post a little bit more frequently on the Blue Sky. Also Enron10. Go read stuff at our website. Maybe go to the archives in TotalReport.com. I mean, sincerely, like, join the Discard or write into RFN, and I would assume James and company would send any feedback if there's stuff that you want to see happen on the website or the YouTube channel or anything related to this long running enterprise that we're all a part of. Pass it along, because it is the kind of stuff that, like, if in order for us to do stuff, we need to have motivation to do it. And if there are other people that are like, hey, we'd love to see you do this, that'll push us in the right direction.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's gonna wrap up this segment. Greg, do you want to do a little bit of new business afterwards?
You're cool, James.
I'm down. I'm down.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll take a break here, and John, Neil, again, thank you, and we'll let you go, and then Greg and I will hang out, do a little bit to kind of wrap the show up, and do a little bit of new business and close it out. All right. So on that, we will be back shortly.
Bye.
We are back after an extended break. It's just Greg and I for this segment. We're going to do a little bit of new business. Greg, you actually have new business that's not a joke, so I'd like to hear from yours first before I decide if I want to talk.
Fair enough. So as sort of promised, you've been playing more of Paper Mario 1000 Year Door on Switch. Roll credits on it today. I thought I'd wrap it up here, and it's been a pretty enjoyable experience, I'd say, broadly in line with what I would have expected based on reviews and, playing the original Paper Mario and stuff. But I guess, there's a few things. Obviously, I already talked about the kind of the graphics and whatnot, so going to focus a little bit more on the content of the game. And certainly, there's a lot of elements of it Even though there are, as I understand, having not played all the way through it before, but just reading coverage, reviews and so forth, there have been some tweaks to the script and some tweaks to the, kind of elements like the extra fast travel kind of options and, various sort of little bits of cleanup and convenience type stuff. But the kind of mid-ortsness of it is, certainly a big part of the experience for me, in a number of ways. There's certain sort of references in the script to, kind of Fire Emblem on GBA being one of the things, which, of course, intelligent systems, being the link there, but also Fire Emblem was localized for Western audiences for the first time on GBA, right around the time that Thousand Year Door came out originally, wasn't it? So it's like, that sort of kind of little time capsule. Think about in the 2 decades sort of between releases of this game. How much changed for Fire Emblem globally is just like, it really has been a long time, hasn't it? And then you've got all your various kind of visual little like cues and touches, like lots of GBA stuff. Like in this game, Mario has discovered email, which is an amusing thing in itself. Like, email being a novelty in the game.
God.
And he gets email through essentially a GBA SP. Which is like, again, that was relatively new when Thousand Year Door came out back then. The SP was 03, I want to say, but don't worry, the launch day model gets plenty of like visual referencing as well, because there's in particular one chapter where the third one, I believe, where you're kind of going through this sort of series of battles and you're in this like locker room and stuff, and you go through this process of like registering for fights and whatnot, and you do that on a number. Each locker room that you're in has its own like launch day GBA model on the wall that you have to kind of, it is a terminal that you kind of interface with to arrange these contests and stuff. So yeah, lots of that. If anybody was very much around and digesting, the Nintendo scene around that time, even if you didn't, actually play this specific game, so if you're in my position, there's a fair bit of a kind of nostalgic kind of whiff to all that stuff. And I guess the kind of one bit of that that's not as sort of all roses is that it also has a fair bit of, something that was quite common to games on the GameCube in particular. Not that it was like, specific, like only a GameCube era problem or anything by any means, but certainly the prominent examples of this were on, major Nintendo releases in the GameCube era. It's just some of that really, what feels like very overt kind of padding. Obviously the most famous examples in the GameCube era, would be games that are, like this, very well remembered, and held in high esteem at the time. But, Wind Waker, of course, the Triforce Quest, Metroid Prime, the Artifacts, and even smaller games like Luigi's Mansion actually had a quite shocking amount of padding in them to try and get, as much as they possibly could out of it, because there was this concerted effort at Nintendo in that time to increase the pace of releases after the N64 era. This fit of, and there are a lot of reasons for it relating to the N64 hardware and grappling with the realities of 3D game design and polygonal graphics for the first time, and a bunch of games took longer than they were meant to, and there were big gaps between releases, and the N64 didn't fare as well as Nintendo had hoped. So when the GameCube came along and they made some changes hardware wise to make it easier to develop for, they actually used optical media and so forth, but they also undertook a broad strategy of like, let's have games that we can develop faster, and get released at a more sort of even pace to help popularize the console, which of course it didn't, because the GameCube was about 2/3 as successful as N64. But, that was the goal. And so what that led to is a number of games where it's like, well, basically, we're obliged to release this now. However, we're not really sort of sanguine that this is as long as people expect for a game of this sort, so we're going to have to put some things in that feel a bit naked as to lengthen them. And with Thousand Year Door, I don't know whether it's necessarily quite to the level as something like the Triforce situation in Wind Waker. I mean, that could be the thing about Wind Waker. You talk about the Triforce, but it's more like the dungeon that's obviously missing. That's really the issue there, isn't it? It's
you can feel its absence.
It's so blatant that there's a dungeon missing.
I mean, isn't it basically where Jabu Jabu is gone, and there's this is where it would have been. There's a hole here in the island.
Really, there's two cases of it. There's the on either side of getting the Master Sword. There's Jabun just giving you a pearl for being nice enough to find him and ask. And then there's the kind of the weirdness with we talked about this. We did the Wind Waker HD retroactive and whatnot. Like the latter two temples, their themes just seem really muddled. Like it's like, well, hang on a minute. Right? So like the Earth Temple and the Wind Temple seem like they've been reversed or something.
Right. The sage doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and you just kind of feel like that might be because originally there were going to be 3. And they got consolidated into 2, and it didn't quite kind of work either way, and then you just get that weirdness. So the point is that was really clear that you had these quests that were substituting for something that was obviously absent. I'd say here, you've got these phases in the game in Thousand Year Door that feel to me like it's just all right, can we just, milk this a little bit more? Can we drag this out a bit because we want the game to be longer? And I really feel it's very unnecessary. There's more than enough here of substance.
Right.
To be a satisfying, Paper Mario RPG kind of length. Now, admittedly, RPGs in general, away from the kind of bubble, the silo of it's a Mario RPG, it's more for beginners, it's more jovial, kind of comedic tone, whatever you want to say. They were blowing up in this era to bigger and bigger, leaving the sort of more compact Super Nintendo RPG kind of running times well behind by the time we got into the aughts. So maybe it was a certain self-consciousness of that, other games in the RPG space in this time were expected to take very long to complete. But still, it feels like you've got plenty of content, you've got plenty of the abilities that you amass between, yourself and then each of the partner characters as you sort of, build them up over time. You've got a lot of different things you can do, a lot of different kind of ways to go back and now I can go into this particular part because I can blow up that kind of wall, or I can, kind of glide over this gap or whatever it might be. There's no shortage of settings and scenarios and, like I said, abilities, gameplay elements, and yet they still seem, the aforementioned the Glitz pit in the 3rd chapter, a series of battles which it just feels like kind of thing. And I know there is a pit of trials thing that's optional content, which is just a famously long series of battles, but it kind of feels like this is something that you would expect to be reserved for optional content, but isn't. Because, not only is it just, a bunch of battles, but also there's just this sort of friction to it of, as I said, you've got to go to the GBA, you've got to sort of book your appointment to fight the battle, and then you've got to wait for the sort of chaperone to arrive to take you to the ring, at which point you will fight. This can't, on the one hand, as a scenario, for the purposes of the story, the script, it's quite funny, it's quite different, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but you could have all of that and just have it play out more quickly. And
right.
I mean, I don't know how, like, certainly some of this fast travel stuff and things they've done from what I've read in reviews, I'm sure that has made the game shorter and all that, but, and there probably other things that may be more subtle, certainly that I'm definitely not going to pick up on, and maybe certain reviewers maybe didn't either. But it certainly seems to me as if there was probably a little bit more scope for, like, you know what, like, it's, it's 2024. You know, we're more mindful today of players who, you know, actually, you know, want to be able to get through these things in a smooth and shorter time frame than, you know, this game is for kids and it's their one game for X number of months and they want to be able to take, you know, for it to take a long time to beat it, you know, like that is something that's definitely shifted the composition of their, you know, consumer base in 20 years. And, you know, their priorities have shifted with it. And it's just kind of like, to me, I feel like there's more that could have been done because I think, as I already mentioned, I think we're talking about playing Paper Mario, the original, on NSO and so forth. Portability smooths over some of this stuff. You know, I don't know how I would have fared back in the day with some of this stuff in front of the telly, and it was like not only, you know, I couldn't just like put it to sleep and walk away, you know, like, not that saving is particularly limited. You pretty much usually got a quite easily accessible save block option not too far away from you at any given point, but I find that it's just a little bit sort of peculiar that you know, in the first place some of this stuff was there to kind of drag things out seemingly when I don't think that was necessary, and B, maybe that more could have been done now, you know, 20 years on, to kind of say, can some of this stuff just, you know, have all, again, I don't find fault with the scenario and all that, and that is a strength of the game, that like all these kind of weird and somewhat sort of unexpected kind of scenarios that they put Mario in this time. Like I said, you know, the original Paper Mario is much more built on, you know, the typical Super Mario sort of scenario of, you know, the princess gets kidnapped by Bowser and she's got to be saved. Here, you've still got Peach getting kidnapped, but everything else about it is very much like, let's try and do weirder, sort of quirkier situations and get more comedy out of that. And I think for the most part, it's successful. It's just sometimes in service of that, it's like, I don't know whether it is just a case of you're beating the joke into the ground too hard, or you just, you know, very kind of brute force way of increasing the playtime. But yeah, there's a little bit of fat in one or two chapters, I'd say, in particular. But other than that, I think it's a really, really great sort of iteration on that first Paper Mario. It is very much like, okay, we did that, it worked, but what can we do, you know, very much on that template. Like, it is really very much on that template, like the chapters, the, you know, getting the sort of the stars, you know, as the sort of MacGuffins of the game, and the partner characters, a lot of them, you know, have similar abilities and some of the same like enemy groups in Mario lore and stuff. Like, there's a huge amount of continuity with the original, but it just, I mean, obviously in this version in particular, it looks way better, but it's just, it feels more creative, it feels more unpredictable, and again, certainly with this version, the actual kind of cutscenes and storytelling and kind of the way the characters can kind of emote and stuff, even though it's, you know, it's all text based, is significant, much beyond, you know, what you got in the original Paper Mario. So it's just like they went out and really, you know, took that as the template and kind of maxed it out almost, I think. I mean, it kind of, it makes a little bit more sense to me why like Super Paper Mario and even after that are the way they are, because it does feel like they maybe they just kind of felt like we did what we could do with this format with Thousand Year Door, you know, like, not that I would say it's unambiguously preferable to like the original Paper Mario in every respect, because like I would for a start say I think the original Paper Mario probably is more of a sort of brisk and breezy kind of experience by comparison, you know, which might be preferable in some ways for some tastes and some circumstances. But other than that, you know, broadly speaking, I just feel like, yeah, like let's let's be more creative with it. Let's have more fun with it and embellish it, in a few other ways, like I said, with more kind of abilities and, a few more aspects in the battle systems and things. And, I think the very end of the game, kind of ramps up with a little bit more challenge and actually, bring in more of these kind of gameplay elements into the fold again, because there's certain chapters where it's just like they aren't that much like, but in terms of like environmental puzzles or any of this kind of stuff, put to the side for a more kind of either like a bunch of combat or like adventure game type angles and things, which they kind of work on their own terms, but they maybe they overstay their welcome. But before the end, they kind of like bring all the kind of elements together in a quite satisfying way, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. I mean, I think the biggest thing that you feel of it again, being the product of its time relative to the new, Origami King, because I have not played a Color Splash, but the HD kind of Paper Marios, is those environments are like very simply laid out. They are essentially laid out the way they were on N64, almost like a belt scroller, like it's just like a flat thing in a void, and then like it's you have the background. But while it's much prettier than the N64 version, and a fair bit prettier than the GameCube, kind of take on these environments, they're not that interesting to explore. That's the biggest thing for me, is like when you're looking at remembering, and it's been 4 years, so there's probably a little bit hazier. But you look at something like Origami King, I think the environments are just they're much more kind of organic. They much more feel like they're actual locations rather than like built on what they could do on N64, and that made much more like natural places to hide things and kind of and explore and stuff. It's like they work a few things in, like little check behind this and there might be like a star piece and whatnot, but it's just because of the fundamental nature of the way those environments were built, they're just not that interesting for exploration. And exploration is not that, it's somewhat part of it, but it is a little bit limited as a result.
It was very much the focus of Origami King, but I'm not surprised it isn't in this, because obviously it's a different kind of game.
Yeah, no, it is, exactly. So it's not like a huge I don't think it's a huge detriment to this game, but it's certainly a contrast that you could feel either, like they really and as is natural, right? Just moving on to more complicated hardware and a different kind of game design, like they really changed how they built these environments. But I guess the one plus, I guess, for this particular game, having such kind of like the simple nature of the environments, is it probably did let them just max out the visual quality here in terms of the lighting and everything. Like it just lets they can go really hard with making that simple environment look as good as it possibly can, because the presentation is just really, really strong here. Look, they just, like I said, the lighting's a huge part of it. It just really gives this sort of weirdly realistic feel to something which is obviously like a very patently not reality at all. Like it's a strange mix that I think works really, really well. And there was definitely some of that going on in Origami King as well that looked pretty fantastic. But I think it's just being able to kind of focus their efforts on these kind of environments has made it that just purely kind of like that straight up like image quality kind of thing even stronger here. So I'm very pleased with it overall. I think it's, but for a little bit of kind of places where they maybe could have tightened it up a bit more, it's a pretty entertaining experience from start to finish and impeccably presented.
I never played this one, Thousand Year Door. So I played the N64 one, and I remember reading the reviews about how like it was such an expansion on the N64 one. I remember that kind of turned me off, because you mentioned it. Like I loved how brisk the N64 game was. Like, which is a weird thing to say late era N64, because it's not like there was something else I was waiting to play.
Oh no, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I was that guy, basically in terms of like importing N64 games. Like, I wanted them to last, you know what I mean? Like, so I think by the time Paper Mario the original came around, because I didn't play that on N64 either, I played it on Virtual Console the first time. I was just in saving up for GameCube mode and GBA as well. So again, it just, but the funny thing is, like, back when I was playing N64 games, like, I was more sensitive to like, no, I want it to last. I want it to, but now I think, especially like, because again, I had not played through Thousand Year Door before, but a few years from now, and it's like, do you want to play through Paper Mario again or Thousand Year Door again? There's a few different aspects to that choice that are going to inform which you'd make, but Paper Mario would have that on its side, that it's a more compact kind of brisk experience. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna buy Thousand Year Door right now. I think I'll wait. If I do buy it, I'll wait for a sale. There is obviously the discourse of like, oh, the characters are unique, and that never really did anything for me. Like, I actually think the thing in Thousand Year Door, there's a running joke about the fact the Bob-ombs are identical, and like when they die, you mourn them, but also you meet another one almost immediately that replaces them, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, everything's fine, and then basically just immediately forgotten. That I think is actually really fucking funny.
Yeah, the Origami King, yeah.
Origami King, yeah.
I know the bit you're on about, yeah. No, I mean, I've not been... I think, the Paper Mario and this, they both work in terms of, the kinds of characters they've got and, giving them personality and things. But, I can't speak to Sticker Star and Colour Splash because I've not played them, but definitely... Origami King does not lack for personality. That is not a problem in that game. Like, there's probably valid criticisms to be made. I may well have made some of them when I spoke about it 4 years ago, but I cannot imagine that as a general sense you're going to say the game lacks personality. Maybe it's not personality in the way that you prefer in that sort of game or something, but as a general matter, it's got it in spades.
Oh, absolutely. But like I said, if I do, I'll wait for a sale because I'm just going to throw this out there. Nintendo just sent out an announcement about a sale they're running right now, presumably in the lead up to what we talked about earlier, their Direct. And it's a bunch of their stuff. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is back in there. Animal Crossing. Some stuff that's not there is Doom and Tomb Raider. You got your Splatoon 3s, your Kirby, Forgotten Land, again, Odyssey, Donkey Kong, Link's Awakening. All the stuff you expect to see in there. I think Hyrule Warriors might be a new one on the list. Engage, I think this might be its second sale. Your Xenoblades, your Bayonettas, like I said, all the stuff you expect to see showing up. But I can't imagine that it'll be too long before, maybe even this year, that Thousand Year Door joins that like 20% off for 10 days window that we see usually around holidays for the games that came out earlier in the year. But that might depend on there being games to replace it as their holiday game. So maybe not. Who knows?
We'll see. That's the thing. We're at this moment, we're presumably... likely a couple of weeks away, certainly based on what John Redden was saying, and that would fit last year's, slotting, wouldn't it? Yeah. After the Summer Game Fest, I think it was about 21st. So just applying that for this year's calendar seems like you're somewhere in that region away from that Direct, and that's going to give us, at the moment we've got the NES World Championship thing, which. Is first of all, it's in July. It's right at the beginning of that second half of the year, but also, it's not the most kind of major release, is it? You know, I think it's £25 over here digitally, and then they've got that physical edition with the gold replica cartridge and the pin badges or whatever. But you know, we have to see. We've got a lot to fill in now. I guess it'd be probably appropriate to have some modest expectations about the scale of the things that will come after July. But you've got to think. So I think it'd be fair to say that it could be more major than NES World Championships.
Oh yeah. But yeah, check that out. I think it's a pretty short sale this time. I think it's 10 days. So pretty narrow window. Maybe it's 13. But if it's 13, it'll be 10 by the time you hear this. So get on it, I guess. There's some weird ones in this particular set of sales. Anything else?
No, I think that'll do it. Although there is the news that all the Game Boy Mega Man games have gone up on NSO in the I think since we started recording.
I missed this.
Yeah, well, there was a bit of a tease by accident, seemingly, before we started recording, because I think one of the European eShops, someone had noticed that had accidentally put a banner up with the 5 box arts of the Mega Man games for Game Boy. So it was like, well, hang on, that's probably happening and probably happening soon, isn't it? And then while we've recorded tonight, they have actually been made live for the NSO Game Boy app.
I will forewarn, these aren't very good. Just as a heads up.
Well, especially the earlier ones are like adaptations of the NES games, right? So it's not like a straight port, but it's like, okay, we've got sort of say the bosses are the same, and then we kind of remix the levels to cope with the smaller resolution and things. But I think Mega Man 5 is kind of where it got to, where it was like, no, this is pretty much just an original game.
Right.
For Game Boy, and is kind of better thought of accordingly. So, and that in that sense, again, it's kind of nice for me because it's like I've had Mega Man 5 before on 3DS, because that was the one that was considered of the most merit, and I wasn't gonna buy the others. But now you can sample them, without having to buy specifically those games. So I'm quite grateful in a way, because I like Mega Man a lot, and it's nice to kind of be able to explore this without kind of paying for things that you're skeptical you'll get that much out of, but equally you'd like to see, and just a little bit of an upset, I'd say. I mean, I know what you're saying. It's a fair play. There's a reason this is not a Mega Man Legacy collection.
Right.
We've had a number of those.
And there's no fear of putting bad games on a collection, because the Mega Man X2 collection exists, and it's nothing but.
You've had 2 separate collections, for the classic Mega Man style games, haven't you? With 1 through 6, and then the later ones in a separate collection. Like you said, the 2 separate collections of Mega Man X. And then you've got stuff like Battle Network and ZX/Zero. They've done a lot of these, so it's a little bit. You might have thought it was possible that these could be held over, bundled into a collection of their own. But equally, I suppose this again could be that sort of sweet spot that we've talked about, where it's just it's not enough for us as a major publisher to really want to kind of put this as a standalone product. But if assuming Nintendo's made it worth their while, it's that's a good balance. Make them available without actually sort of having to rely on a bunch of people buying it, because in a lot of cases you'd be like, well, why don't I just buy the original Mega Man Legacy collection, right? Because that's even though this is not strictly true, but it's those are the real versions of the
heavily inspired by of the NES games.
Exactly. And you've got the better play area of color graphics, so on.
Yeah, and it looks better. Not just because it's color, but just because of the how the animation on the 2 systems works. This is actually an interesting scenario where you can really see the technical prowess difference between the NES and Game Boy. Because in terms of, besides the color, in terms of capability, they're comparable. But in these games, you can see where the Game Boy struggles. So But hey, they're free if you have Nintendo Online, so go for it. There's 5 of them. And now I think the first 3 are really short, like really devastatingly short, like 5 bosses short. But
as we know, as you cover in Super Mario Land and so forth, Game Boy games, that was not exactly unheard of.
Nope. But hey, they're out there now, and they're not fucking Quest for Camelot, so that like it's not all bad. I mentioned it, I teased it, so I'll talk about it really briefly. I downloaded, so I was trying to download Humanity on Xbox Game Pass because it just came out on Game Pass, and it's like I would describe it as like Lemmings taken to a different level. But I couldn't launch it. Every time I tried to launch it, it just crashed. And there is after some Googling, I found it just came out on Game Pass. I found out there is a bug where if you have a non-standard icon on your Xbox profile, Humanity will crash instantly. This is very funny. And the developers are saying, hey, we're working on a patch. In the meantime, just pick one of the standard icons. My response to that was, no, I've had this icon since the Xbox 360, and I'm not changing for no one, even when it looks stupid, because the Xbox 360 resolution one was like 60 by 60, and the Xbox Series X one is like 500 by 500. Don't care. I'm going to keep it. So the next game that the Xbox Game Pass offered me, of all fucking games, was Disneyland Adventures, which is the Xbox One port of the Xbox 360 Kinect game called Kinect Disneyland Adventures. You can note the lack of the word Kinect because this remake came out in 2017. So it doesn't have Kinect at all.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you're someone who only knew about Xbox One from when it was announced, you would have thought, well, why have we got rid of Kinect? I mean, I thought this was integral to the platform. But
yeah, you would think that.
By 2017, that was not very much in the thinking anymore.
No. Mostly I was just curious, because I literally had just come back from there like 3 weeks prior when I downloaded it. I was like, I wonder how well it actually models the park. So I have now become something of an expert of video game adaptations of theme parks, having experienced the Universal one back on GameCube, which was like a GameCube launch game, or very close to launch. I know it's on the back of my launch day GameCube box. It's fucking terrible. Six Flags Unfun Park, which was a game where you cleaned up trash at Six Flags and then were given coins that you could use to play games. Basically, Six Flags apparently deputized their staff to be the janitorial staff for the opportunity to enjoy the park they paid admission for. It was like weird Animal Crossing-esque in some ways. It just fucking was terrible. And now this thing, which is also bad, but bad in a weird way. I will say it does a remarkable job of rendering the park in accurate scale and detail. To give an example, when we were there, there was a bridge going into the Frontierland area that we stopped at because we thought we saw a fish. And indeed, there is a fish, but they're animatronic fish as well in this little stream, which is very weird because they're real fish. So I guess Disney wanted to make sure that if you watch long enough, you were guaranteed to see a fish splash, even if it wasn't real. I don't know. There's a lot of weird shit like that in that park where it's like, yeah, we put real animals here, but we also put fake ones just to make sure you saw something. And as I was playing the game, which you just navigate your sprite, your little model character you can create yourself, which is a child, and you don't have a lot of options. I was like, okay, if they modeled this correctly, when I make this turn onto this bridge, there should be a split in the trees where you can see the lake. And sure enough, there it is. And in fact, I went and found a picture I took of it for a reason not related to anything important. And it's like they even modeled like the shape of where the trees have been cut out so you can see the lake. It's like, okay, they put a lot of effort into this, which is weird because they fucked up the castle, like the centerpiece of the park. That's a very odd thing that they did. But there is a major difference, which is this is circa 2011. I saw it in 2024, but this version came out in 2017. And so 2011 still has the land dedicated to everyone's favorite movie, The Song of the South. And that's definitely not in the park anymore. So it was very weird that in 2017, when they had announced all that shit was going away, they left it in the game anyway. So it's just there. So you get to meet Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox and have that fun experience. I don't know. It was very odd. I'm just fascinated by the fact that the game's mechanics are largely driven by meeting Disney characters and then interacting with them in one of 4 ways that was clearly meant to be a connect gesture. And then 2 of them involve having them sign your signature book or take a photo with you to go into your photo book. And yes, you do have to buy signature and photo books. And yes, characters are in different signature and photo books. So you might encounter, in fact, you will almost certainly encounter many characters where at this moment you cannot get their signature, but the game will helpfully remind you, hey, I think I saw some signature books back at the store. Are the stores in all the exact same places they are in the park, and in fact have the same name as the store in that spot in the park? Why, fucking yes, they are. Are they even styled similarly? Oh yeah. They put a lot of effort in making sure the park stores are exactly where they are in the game, so you can find them when you go to the park for real. That's the only thing I can come up with, because progress in this game is locked almost exclusively around how much money you have spent in the store, which feels very on brand.
So it's a little bit candid there. I say.
It's almost too on the nose. It's very weird. Yeah, you can go talk to Peter Pan. You can go dance with him and shake his hand, but he's not going to sign any old goddamn signature book. You better have the one for, I can't remember what Trickster Heroes, which is 5 different people. There are a few weird omissions, anything branded, there's a shitload of company logos that get paid to be stuck around Disney. The coffee shop that's meant to be an 1890s coffee shop is there, and it's still styled, but the Starbucks logo is missing. Stuff like that. But the one thing that I did notice that was missing that gave me a good old laugh, anything licensed. So Roger Rabbit's not there. Star Tours isn't there because they hadn't, and Indiana Jones isn't there because they hadn't bought Lucas yet for 6 more months. So 6 months later they could have put him in, but nah. But the one that fucking cracked me up is Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow's not there. The character or nothing. They invented this other guy who's named Bart Black, and he just talks it's Troy. I'm blanking on his name. The voice actor. He's in fucking everything. Doing a bad Johnny Depp impersonation of doing his pirate voice. They have their own off-brand Jack Sparrow, which fucking cracked me up. Almost all of your progression is go talk to Disney character. They ask you to take photos of a thing. Go buy the photo book that's relevant. Take the photos. Come back. They thank you for taking the photos. Then they go ask you to find things scattered around the park for them. There's a gold, like Xenoblade X, where it had the line that led you to the quest thing you needed to find. There's that. So that's always leading you out to where the thing you need to find is. You pick it up, you come back, you talk to them again. Then you're their best friend. Then they give you some money that you can then go spend in the store to buy pins, which is another big Disneyland thing I found out. And it's all the things you would buy: clothes, pins, signature books. They're just there. Just buy them all. Buy them all to complete the game. It's very weird. It's very unsettling. It's just bad. This is the 3rd theme park game I've played in my life. You'd think I would stop, but I won't stop. I eagerly await the next theme park themed game.
Well, I mean, it's not an actual theme park, and it's a bit of a tenuous sort of linking device, I guess, just for a bunch of variants of play on one kind of game. But a good theme park, dare I say, themed game is Mr. Driller Drill Land. So if you need to cleanse your palate with the idea of a video game theme park that in some sense is fun to visit. I would recommend that because it's quite an upset. This is a Japan exclusive GameCube Mr. Driller game, got ported to Switch, and I played the GameCube version. I've spoken about playing it on here before, but the Switch version is naturally, very convenient, portable, makes it even more playable. Good fun.
I might give it a shot. I just remember, I was very, really the whole academic exercise was, how well did they model the park? Because Disney is nothing if not exacting. And I figured, they'd actually be pretty anal retentive about it. And it does feel like they are. There is this tour guide character that just gives you facts. It's the largest collection of distinct plant species on the east coast of North America. On the west coast of North America, or west of the Mississippi, I believe is how they word it. I was also fascinated by the fact it's land and not world. They seem to have a weird romanticism for that park versus its sibling. But also, I was like, how are they going to make the rides interesting? And they're just bad mini games. They're just very bad. Very obviously were originally Kinect, but now you're doing them on gamepad mini games. And that means a lot of them are just button presses. Just press A when it gets highlighted. But because original Kinect was so bad, there's just so much time to press the buttons. I basically perfect all of them on every single run. It's a nightmare. Meanwhile, I've got Goofy making yelling noises at me about how good I'm dancing. I'm like, Goofy, shut the fuck up. I don't need this from you right now. I'm just trying to get a perfect score. Get the fuck out of here. It's such a weird... it was a weird product for Kinect. But functionally, I get it, because they were trying to wrap a brand. And this is a Microsoft-published game. Team Asobo made the port. The Xbox One version doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what its intention is. Functionally as a game, it's nothing. It's bad. Kinect would be the only thing that gave it any kind of distinction. But that's gone. Its exacting recreation of the park isn't fun and makes the park seem like a capitalist hellscape, which it is, but it's at least nominally enjoyable. I had fun. So this removes the fun, but really drives home the fact that you will stop in every store. You will look at what they have to buy. It will mostly be the same, but it'll be slightly different. So you just can't skip them. But in this case, it's just okay, now you got to go to the Adventureland store so you can buy the Adventureland signature books. Otherwise, you will never get Baloo's signature, and you will fail. You will fail at Disney. It's this is so fucking weird. I don't understand why the Xbox One version exists. That's where I'm at. But also because it was dated at that point. It was 6 years out of date. And the park had undergone a major transformation that they were receiving blowback about because they're like, man, we got to get rid of the Song of the South stuff. This isn't great. So I don't know what they were going for. It's so weird. It's an odd product. I didn't plan to talk about it on the show, but I'm like, no, I should. It's too weird. It's too weird and too goofy. And why did I guess it's on Game Pass because Microsoft's like, well, we're never going to get any money for this. And we own it. So fuck it. It does sort of go to what we talked about with Nintendo Switch Online of just who cares that it's bad? Fuck it. We have it.
Yeah, it's not quite giving away Too Human, but it's a little bit like that.
It's very inhuman, to be honest. It's Quest for Camelot's the ultimate example of fuck it, we have it, put it up.
That's really baffling. Because it's just
we
terrible. Talk about this limited sort of scope that there seems to be for kind of collaborations that can happen. Right, this sweet spot that there's got to be when you're talking about licensing it from the outside. That game would apparently be, in the correct overlapping circles on the Venn diagram. Is I don't know.
I would have paid for the exclusive rights to bury it. To be like, okay, I now own the rights to the Quest for Camelot game. What are you gonna do? Delete all the copies. Make it go away forever. Because it's bafflingly poor. It is almost an exercise in doing as many things wrong as you can on purpose as a joke. But like the inclusion of this fucking Disneyland game, I get it because it's got a name attached to it, and I guess it didn't cost Microsoft anything. I don't get it because it's terrible and just reminds you of the dark times of Kinect. Like, I guess because I get it enough, I have to accept that Quest for Camelot is not any different. But, like, if we're back, a dinosaur story shows up on the Game Boy fucking Nintendo Switch Online, I'm going to be upset because that game's also terrible. It's a movie about dinosaurs eating cereal that makes them super smart and talk, and I think John Goodman's the voice of a T-Rex. I don't know. I had that game as a child because, as I've constantly reminded y'all, my mother was a video game buying savant in the worst possible way. Yeah, I don't know. Like here I am running through these. I do encourage people to go look for the Universal game on GameCube because somebody at some point in like 2001's like, you should be the mascot of our game, Woody Woodpecker. And it was a choice. Now imagine Woody Woodpecker's voice constantly giving you tutorials. And that's the authentic experience of playing Universal for GameCube. So it's I would only encourage you to play it. I do not encourage that. Do not play this game, but maybe go see it. I do wonder if these are marketing things. Like, the Six Flags one was right in the middle of them declaring bankruptcy. Or if it's just like, it's a brand name, we can stick it on the box, we're done. A Disney one feels like it's marketing. In a very distinct sort of way. I don't understand the Universal one at all. Like, at all. In any way, shape, or form. Because it doesn't market anything. It just makes you want to punch Woody Woodpecker in the face. Maybe Jaws. Maybe Jaws as well. So, I don't know. But
it's the only way to deal with a shark, right?
No, you got to blow it up from an airplane so it doesn't follow you to fucking the tropical islands.
I think Jaws 3 is like a grenade in its mouth or something.
Yeah. There was a very serious interview where somebody asked, because like even Jaws 2 is predicated on the shark wanting revenge.
Yeah, that's the thing. They give it all this about Jaws 4 like it's, somehow some sort of novel element in the Jaws canon that sharks have blood feuds, but it really isn't.
No. And so there's an interview where somebody was like being interviewed about Jaws. And it's like, this is a shark expert who's like, talking about, we need to protect sharks and all that stuff. And somebody just straight ahead of, do sharks carry grudges? And like, you could see her brain reset. Just like, huh? What? What? And then it's like, well, in Jaws 2, it's like, oh, no, sharks don't carry grudges. They're sharks. It's like her brain just shut down. I was like, yeah, that's right.
Jaws 2, it bites on like an electrical power line or something.
Yeah,
I think that's how it dies in that one.
Jaws the Revenge is cinema, and you should watch it at all, like constantly. Just have it on loop forever.
You'd be glad to know that apparently Jaws 3 and 4 are getting 4K disc releases.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I fully expect you to buy that and watch it in HDR and all that
good
stuff.
I mean, you have to. In surround sound, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. It's probably Atmos, isn't it, at this point?
Oh, that's true. So remember, Jaws the Revenge, its biggest thing, it's like the best thing it does is it bought Michael Caine a nice house.
Oh yeah, it did. Also, one of the best, like, when they have like a feature actor but like in a supporting role, so yes. Like they get the sort of feature credit of like, and Michael Caine as blank, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, his character name in Jaws the Revenge is unforgettably Hoagie. So that to me, that is one of the great credits in cinema history. And Michael Caine as Hoagie.
In his defense, he's never seen that and may not know that was his character's name.
God bless him for not watching it. I was like, but it's up there. I mean, there's probably better ones in terms of just more bizarre anyway. But yeah, that's pretty good.
Anytime it's a dog is also a very good one, where you get like a bunch of actors and then finally, and featuring Bess and then the dog just walks into screen. It's like, what? Excuse me? I guess there's a dog here too. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, there was. I saw quite recently one of the old American International, was it, the company? Edgar Allan Poe sort of adaptations where although I think it was a Poe one anyway, but he's a Vincent Price and Peter Lorre in it, and then it's got and Rhubarb the cat. In fact, this cat is like quite famous. Like it did loads of movies in
That's amazing.
50s and 60s, and like one of them was Rhubarb. And then, so it wasn't actually called Rhubarb, but it kind of became its stage name, and evidently was big enough to get a feature credit like that.
That's amazing.
Rhubarb the cat, alongside, I think it's Vincent Price for sure, but then also like Karloff and Basil Rathbone.
Oh my God,
and Rhubarb there with the legends.
I mean, the I would say they're right up there with Rhubarb, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I mean, give it how many credits it managed to fit in a cat's lifetime, and that's prolific stuff.
God. I'm trying to think like what would be the best animal to get in featuring. And like I'm thinking like a boa constrictor. It's just like just sitting there in the shot when they do the and featuring. And then maybe we just never actually see the boa constrictor. Or maybe we see it.
That's the kind of thing to be like a spoof, wouldn't it? Yeah, no, you never get that.
Or maybe we get like, it was on TV in the background for one shot. It's like, oh man, geez.
I think the weirdest thing is just this whole thing. Like, have you seen Michael Bay's Ambulance? I think it's Michael Bay, right? I'm not getting my action movie directors mixed up. Like his own dog plays like quite a significant role in that film.
Sure.
It's just like this massive dog, and he's obviously got very strong convictions about its, screen presence, and insisted that it be a significant part of this film about a hostage situation with an ambulance.
That sounds so stupid. Honestly, that sounds
you're shocked that a Michael Bay action picture might not be like the most firmly rooted in reality.
But like, there's tiers of how stupid Michael Bay gets. That seems up there. That seems very high.
I've not seen as many, especially like latter day. Like the earlier stuff, I've probably seen most of Michael Bay's, but past a certain point, it did get a bit much for me. But for whatever reason, I did get through that. And, to be fair, the dog, legitimate highlight for me, is a bloody good dog.
Well, that's good. There we go. So maybe the dog maybe there was open auditions. Maybe this isn't an Underworld or Resident Evil situation.
The director's dog won.
Director's dog just nailed it. Blind auditions. He got it. It's all fair. His line reads were perfect. Fuck. All right, that's gonna do it. That's it. Michael Bay's excellent acting dog is our episode title name, so that's fine. Craig, we need some music.
We do. Well, we had a request in from AG for a track from Paper Mario 1000 Year Door for Switch. A Famous Actress's Necklace is the name of the track, which AG notes. It really shows off the kind of remastering job that they did on the soundtrack here with the sort of enhanced instrumentation. In this particular case, you've got the actual vocals, the strings, all that. I mean, I've heard some of the original soundtrack, but again, because I did not play through it back in the day, it's not burned in my head or whatever. So I could understand, some people might have, an attack. I've been on the other side of this with other games, right? Like where, you got used to how it sounded, and, even if like some changes you can objectively say are enhancements, you still kind of like it the way it is. For those people, you do have a badge that you can equip for the classic tunes, as nice. They put it. But I think the remix, the remastered, reorchestrated soundtracks, really, really well done. Just it's kind of as rich and kind of lively as the more recent games, but strong compositions. and just a great amount of like variations, like because you have the sort of a common refrain with the battle theme, but they have kind of like region, location specific like variations of it all over the game, even like with the sort of closing fanfare for winning the battle and all that. Like there's just a lot of variations and touches and crafted sort of bits to the soundtrack as there is with everything else about the presentation of this game. It's very, very good.
Cool. All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.